tired of that bullshit, man. Retire that. They don't really wanna hear the truth no more. Think they scared how I make them feel. And you can say anything you want about me. I ain't worried, that don't make it real. They don't really wanna hear the real no more. Think they scared how I make them act. And you can say anything you want about me. I ain't tripping, that don't make it fact. Look, coming live from the gutter like a cold puddle. When niggas water whipping, road shuttle, motherfucking whole huddle. Dutch burning, moving slow, I'm feeling like the minute.
Always been me, I'm poppin'. I ain't really here for the gossip, nah. Blah, 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 yeah, try to play me, but you tried it. Way too wavy, gotta ride it. Pull up on you, yeah, we sliding. Make our eyes roll when I slide in. Neck on wrist on shaman. Tell them say less, no comment. And we only here for the commas.
Ay, pull up and how about we sliding? Loaded away on beside these be lying. Skating on days, we gliding. I'm hitting that in the driving.
Hitting that while we vibing. You know I be on that time and light up, I'm firing. Dress it up, yeah, I be styling. Eat up the drip, she be dining. Straight to the top, she be climbing. We the ones that they admire. All of these expiring. Ice on the boss and we hiring. Raising the hood where it's sirens. They hopping on ship like a pirate.
Ay, ay, driving the boat and I came for the loot and the tragedy. Be hating, do better. Dropping them ashes and burn me a hole in my sweater. I'm stingy, I'm holding this cheddar.
Holding this cheese, living more better. Smoking these doobies with Xavier. We keep the gravy. Yeah, we too groovy. We keep it unruly. Know it's yours truly. Smoke a big head, call it Stewie. Bad chick, wanna do me. Thick and she coolie. She busted open like a Uzi. I busted, then I'm back to duty. Call of Duty, I'm online with it. Took my time with it. Watch the operators, they be plotting. Don't go with the gang and they rock with us. Everywhere that we go, we be popping up. Yeah, we popular. Eyes on us like binocular. Yeah, they time is up. You could try your luck. Stay anonymous, but in God we trust.
In God we trust. All these looking odd to us. Riding way just like they ride the bus. Them pretty wanna ride my the vibe is us. Sergio Tacchini eating fettuccine. Know they see me getting cake. I've been out hustling at the dinner, baby. I'm a winner. I don't really need a break. Breaking my foot on yo. Breaking the neck of these when I'm bending the corner. Breaking my in the glass. Burning that loud and the neighbors done heard the aroma. Play a persona. She eating my till she fall in the coma. The card of the itis. I really got it off the muscle. Now they wanna tussle. Wanna fight us. On the cruise, country granny played the blues on the stools. Head wrap silky chewing on this oxtail. Scheming on a milli, trying to hit the yacht sail. Gold shining lobster near the Everglade music. When we drop, it's like you never made music. Better days never came easy to a quitter. Ain't no pump faking, let them see that I deliver. God body, baby, big 7 in the skin. Probably why you never hear no better again. Higher than the spot that we bout to set the bar. Stankin', smell it before it left the jar. I just left the coast straight to another ocean. Got excuses, me, I'm really having motion. Sipping on mimosa, chopping real estate game. 40 years later, still the same lane. Just left the hood, never heard of you. 30 long years, not a single word of you. Shop booming, baby, come and get it while it's open.
Right, welcome to Paradigm Shift TV 314. This is your brother, DMG, the poet, aka Brother Pianki. And we have a powerful show with 2 powerful guests. And this is going to be a good one. But before we get into they spill, let me do my usual greeting. Let me say God bless to all my Christian brothers and sisters. Let me say Hotep to all my Kemetic brothers and sisters. Shalom to all my Israelite brothers and sisters. Islam to all my Moorish brothers and sisters. What is this on my? I apologize,
Hey,
family.
you interrupted the spiel. Now we don't have Black Unity. Get back to the spiel.
Yeah, hold on. Let's see. Oh wow. Okay. Okay. I don't know where I left off, family, but look, I say Jumbo to all the little family across the African diaspora, be it here in the wilderness of the United States of America or beyond. Y'all know why I say that greeting. It's because if you're Black, I'm with you, and I hope that you with me. Our different ideologies should not keep us from uniting. We can have unity without uniformity, and we can disagree without being disrespectfully disagreeable. That is especially for our brother Leandre. With that being said, my brothers, please introduce and reintroduce yourself to the Paradigm Shift TV 314 audience.
I'm gonna go first because it's a Black show. I am Leandre. I'm sincerely nobody important. But as I've said before, I am the 96 Jordan back here. We do have, someone on. He's Isaiah Thomas, maybe the Isaiah Thomas, the white Isaiah Thomas back here. So let's see. Nick, I don't know if you got that reference, but go ahead and introduce yourself.
So I am Nick Portwood. I am Leandre's token white friend.
Yes, indeed.
And so just for full disclosure for all your listeners, I'm not actually Black. Just in case anyone wasn't sure.
I love it. But,
that's why we made you go last.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, Leandre's a good friend of mine. We went to Fresno Pacific University together. I just got my degree in philosophy. Graduated summa cum laude. Make my mama proud.
Philosopher.
Well, I don't even know what extraordinaire means, but okay.
Where's Dr. Pam when we need
her? She is probably entertaining her dogs.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. But I also tutored in logic at Fresno Pacific University, and Leandre was one of my students because I took him to school.
Yes, indeed.
Is there no one else?
Go. But go ahead. Anyway, I don't know. Introduction might be done, but yeah. So Nick, like you said, was one of the logic tutors. It was actually required to go sit in with Nick for tutoring in logic. So it was a course requirement if you intended to pass.
Can I ask one question, Leandre? And then I'll let you continue. How did it feel sitting across from Nick, or whatever proximity you were to him in the class, and seeing this illustrious beard and understanding that you cannot even attempt to grow anything in that realm of facial follicle?
Yeah, so I was thankful. I was thankful to God because that's fine. I have the full head of hair. I don't know and stuff up here. Whereas the only waves you have the top of your head, DMG, are impressions in your skull. So this is something I can do, and I can let this all out. And as you know, I did have the long hair for some years. So anyway. Probably the same way it felt when you saw me for the first time with the long locks. But anyhow, but yes, but Nick, I thank you, man, for coming on and doing this. And for a while, I kept telling you that I was going to bring you around to do something just like this. I
was waiting for you to get back to me. I thought you were flaking out.
Yeah, no, yeah, and the thing is, like Nick. He sent me a schedule on a number of occasions, stuff like that. It was like, well, this is my schedule whenever you want. And, it's like years went by. So this is the time. And so even this time, DMG had to end up just reaching out to the brother in order to make it happen. But anyway, Nick,
because he ignores any request I make. I wrote a research paper, ladies and gentlemen, from my Christian philosophy class. I got a B- because of grammatical issues or errors that I had, and some of the wording I used was a bit off. Guess who I asked to check this document for me? Sent it to him, and they never got back to me.
To know me is to know that I do not actually
could have got an A had it not been for a certain friend not having time.
Yes. So everybody who knows me, and if you have my phone number, you know I'm actually terrible at responding back to things. So I don't know. It's just I'm a bit strange. I'm a strange introvert. Nick also thinks he's an introvert, and he is not. So just to point that out.
Hey, take it up with my therapist.
Yeah. So yeah, you know, therapists can be wrong, and anyway, we should get into some of that. Yeah. Anyway, so so Nick, why are you so good at logic?
Because I read. Specifically, I read Aristotle. Now, I just want to let you know that there's an optical illusion happening right now. Because watch what happens when I do this. This is the basic works of Aristotle, and this thing is a doorstop. Yeah, I'm one of those insane individuals who thinks that this is actually fun. Like I've read most of this already.
Yeah. So
there's something wrong with me, clearly.
Nick, question for you. Nick, what is logic?
So logic is a tool in the critical thinker's toolbox. Critical thinking being the process by which we think carefully towards whatever goal we're trying to accomplish. And critical thinking, in turn, is basically a mechanism for reason. Reason, in the context that I am describing, describes a type of thought or a type of thinking in which human beings will take knowledge that we already have, prior knowledge, and we use it to extrapolate new knowledge. It's funny. Thoughts are actually a lot like wealth. You actually can just generate it from nothing, depending on what you do and the people that you interact with. So logic, to give like a dictionary definition, I'll give you guys a pro tip. Philosophers actually rarely use dictionaries because dictionary just describes how people actually use a word. They don't tell you what the word actually means.
Right.
So if you know that about dictionaries, you'll have a leg up on almost anyone who wants to argue semantics with you. But if I had to give a dictionary definition, I would say that logic is the science of correct reasoning. Because contrary to what some people think, there are right and wrong ways of thinking. And when a person is thinking correctly, we say that they're being rational. When they're not thinking correctly, we say they are being irrational. Now, and because logic is a science, you can actually determine that with a high degree of exactitude.
Yeah. See, now, Nick, that's one of the things that I think is fascinating about logic is the fact that it is things that you can, sort of like map out, like you can with mathematics, and that you can come with proofs in logic. And so maybe you could touch on this. When a philosopher or a logician says that some position is absurd, what do they mean when they say that?
They mean that it contains a contradiction. That is the definition of a logical absurdity. It means that you have contradicted yourself. Yeah,
and so my understanding of it has always been that what we're looking at when we see an absurdity, it's to me it's like the highest insult, from a sort of logical perspective, to say that it lacks that sort of consistency that would be necessary for ordered thinking. And he says, so morality is the right way of thinking. How would you answer that question?
Morality is the right way of being, I would say.
Thank you.
So this is another pro tip. Philosophers will debate literally anything. There's for the last, I want to say 2,300 years, philosophers have been debating on whether or not chairs exist.
Exactly. And Nick, I was just going to bring that up. And you and I had this same exact debate in class. We talked about whether the state of chairness exists, and that sort of thing. We went back and forth in class about this. And then I did my logic presentation. Nick was there into the semester logic presentation.
That was a spicy presentation.
Yes. And it was basically an argument over whether or not fathers have the right to abandon their children. And so maybe this is a good time to introduce the subject of a syllogism. What is a syllogism?
So a syllogism is a successive series of statements or propositions, a proposition being a truth claim.
Mm-hmm.
You are claiming that something is true in order to establish a definite conclusion. So that means that a syllogism it's in the category of formal logic. And formal in this case refers to there's a structure that logic provides. And if you follow the rules that the structure provides, you are guaranteed to produce a conclusion that necessarily follows from the premises. So a syllogism is one of the oldest forms of logical reasoning. Aristotle coined the term. He discovered the categorical syllogism, which one of your friends incorrectly identified as a fallacy. And they're really easy, and they're actually really intuitive. Like, for example, here's an example of a syllogism. If today is Sunday, the post office is closed. The post office is not closed, therefore today is not Sunday.
Now, I have an interesting one for you, and this is one the DMV is going to recognize. We were in a conversation. We were having a full-blown argument about the book of Genesis with a bunch of folks who were basically saying, as we were talking about chapters 2 and 3 specifically, with the talking Nachash, the serpent that's there. And
are you really about to do this?
Yes. Because this is one of the things too. And so,
I think this is when you start calling me a philosopher.
Yes, indeed. So, because he understood these concepts, I was going with the Platonic sort of definition of philosophy. He was able to understand these concepts. Now, so Nick, so here's what was being stated. It was being stated unequivocally that animals cannot talk. And so we reasoned from there. And so they said that there was no way that there was a talking serpent, assuming that, that we're talking about an actual snake there. And it was also assumed that there was no such thing as a talking donkey. And basically what they said is and they said, we know that's not true because animals cannot talk. And so then what I did is I asked the question. I said, are humans animals? And the answer came back in the affirmative that yes, humans are animals. And so then we put together syllogism. Nick, can you tell me how what the conclusion would be? Animals cannot talk. That's premise 1. Premise 2, humans are animals. The conclusion, therefore, Nick, what would that be?
That humans cannot talk.
Exactly. And so as you say, it's a pretty straightforward, in pretty simplistic way, but also very powerful and I think actually challenging, to sort of get people to understand that sort of very simple reasoning. What are your thoughts on it?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, so you remember, so in logic class, right? So you have to work on simple form, or like a well-formed formula, that sort of thing. So to put the premises simply in such a way, that way they're plain and clear enough. That way we could see that the conclusion necessarily follows.
Oh, I can actually demonstrate that. I have.
Please do. I was going to ask, do you have a whiteboard?
Yes, I do. I'm actually going to set it up right now.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's see.
Yeah, that was one of those instances with Leandre where I stuck to the rivers and the lakes that I'm used to.
So can you guys see my screen?
No. DMG, you want to give him the permission to share
it? So do you see the present? Oh, there we go. I see it coming up.
All right, sick. Okay, so what Leandre's syllogism does, so there's different orders of logic, and order in this case means order of complexity. So he's talking about, he's observing that human beings have certain properties and animals lack certain properties. And because he's talking about the relationship between subjects and properties, we're going to go into something that's called first order logic. And the goal of first order logic is to strip a statement or an argument of any ambiguity. So what you do is, because there are a lot of words in English that have many different meanings, like the word run, because like my computer runs, but my computer does not run in the same way that I run.
And we don't want to equivocate terms, right?
Yeah, exactly. Equivocation is actually it's an informal fallacy. It's basically lying about what a word means in a given context. So here we could say for any arbitrary individual x, if it is the case that x is an animal, then it implies, or it materially implies, that this same entity x cannot speak. M in this case stands for mute. And then premise 2 would be something like x is a human. And then you would have to introduce another premise, and we can actually just add it right here. X is both human and X is an animal, because he's granting that human beings are animals. So therefore, these the dots in the triangle of dots means therefore, or in conclusion. That would be something like X is human, and actually we wouldn't even need to add that because it's already implied in the prior premise. So there's a rule of inference called simplification. So we're going to simplify.
Hey.
So therefore, X is. I mean, this is actually a tautology, which means, because you'll notice that this right here is this right here. So the term that we had in the very beginning is again here in the process. So it's called a tautology. A tautology is something like 1 + 1 = 2. Because you could substitute it, you could also say 2 = 1 + 1. They mean the same thing. And not only do they mean the same thing, there is no possible way to rearrange reality where this relationship is false. In any possible description of reality, this will always be true. So here we have another tautology, and this is actually a very interesting feature of first order logic. All well-formed statements in first order logic are tautologies. In other words, first order logic is semantically complete. So if you have a well-formed expression in logic, in first order logic, not only is it perfectly unambiguous, because we've reduced the atomic statements, those are like the building blocks that make up more complex statements, into the most basic form. We could probably even do this in what's called zero order logic, which is even simpler than first order logic. So that would be just
DMG, you finding this very simple so far?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that, but
see. But this is why I say, and so this is why I love Nick. This is why I loved having Nick in multiple classes, stuff like that, right? And being in these classes, because this is why I say. So when I say, hey, have you ever actually had your butt kicked in a logic class? And but again, now once you get the concepts, once you get the stuff down, then what's going to happen is that then the world awakens for you and you start to see this sort of stuff everywhere. But you need your butt kicked in this stuff first, because this stretches your thinking and your mind. And so when most persons are throwing around, logical fallacies, which Nick, do professional philosophers often throw out fallacies at each other?
No, it's considered bad form.
Exactly. But back here, though, it happens all the time. Where people's like, "Oh, I know logic," and I'm like, "I don't know that you." But again, there is.
People
have a beauty in this, though. But go ahead. Sorry.
People have an intuitive understanding of logic, because logic is a very broad subject. It's very broad. There's many different types of logic. Like, for example, we're currently live on the internet, and the internet is how computers talk to each other, and computers use computational logic. So there's a specific logic that computers use. And for those people who spend hundreds and hundreds of hours on Minecraft, the redstone in Minecraft also uses computational logic, which is why you're able to build computers in Minecraft on which you can play Minecraft.
And it's funny because because my kids, they sit and play Minecraft, and then there's like 97 games, like within a game and all that kind of stuff like that.
I would not want to challenge your sons to a debate. Your sons are wicked smart.
Hey DMG, what happened when the brother was on here and he was talking about Hebrew, and so I called one of my sons in here, and again, FPU is one of the places where I took Hebrew. Shout out to Dr. Brian Schultz, my professor of Genesis, and also Hebrew, teaches JCC. Tov Me'od. So the brother, he was under talking about stuff, and I called my son in here and had my son, reading Hebrew stuff, and the brother was talking about Hebrew, but then he couldn't do it. But Nick, but before we move on, can you break down that second syllogism you have there? What are we looking at there?
Yeah, so this is an example of a categorical syllogism.
That's the fallacy, right?
Ostensibly.
Yeah.
So
the categorical syllogism.
So this is a way of showing that two things that you don't realize are similar are in fact similar. And the way you do that is you show that their categories overlap. So here, all H are A. So here I'm saying all humans are animals.
Mm-hmm.
And if we grant that premise, if we say yes, this premise is true, then we move on to the second premise. So all animals are mute. Mute in this case just means the inability to speak. For argumentative sake, we'll say that the mimicry of parrots is not speech, and therefore even parrots do not talk. Just for the sake of argument.
For the sake of argument. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All the bird owners are going to be jumping down my throat in the chat, but so all humans are mute. If the premises are true, the conclusion necessarily follows.
Now, Nick, that's interesting because, and let me ask you a question. Is this deductive or inductive?
This is a deductive argument, which means that if this premise is true, and if this premise is true, then the conclusion naturally follows. And so
without that, so so being deductively valid, right? And with the premise being true,
and validity means that the form of the argument is it's properly structured. We have not made any errors in constructing the argument because the form is actually really important, which we can get into later.
So in this example here, what we have is that we have a conclusion that necessarily follows because you have two true premises, and this is a really powerful form of argument, is it not?
Yes, it is, because if the conclusion is true, if the premises are true, then the conclusion is guaranteed to be true with the certainty of a proof.
Okay, now listen, Nick, I'm gonna tell you something. Now you just drew the stupid Venn diagram on here. Venn diagrams are one of the most challenging things. And now listen, we made Venn diagrams like in grade school and stuff. But when you take a Venn diagram section, a DFG in a logic class, this is where life gets really, really stupid. Because
especially since I can't draw a circle to save my life.
Listen, this was the most challenging course. I'm going, okay, now wait a second, and then I'm like, all right, now hang on. But Nick, so yes, so please use this Venn diagram. Now, I prefer the syllogisms, but go ahead.
If I may, I just I'm just asking for the sake of asking, Leandre. So my argument on that night that you were speaking about, just for my ego's sake, because I don't have any hair, and
I know we gotta help you.
I need my ego stroked as much as possible.
Yes, sir.
So my argument was actually a little more effective than even I probably gave it credit for.
Yeah, absolutely, because what it says is that it's like unless you're willing to deny the first premise or the second premise, right? Because you're gonna have to pick one of those, and so this is why when you go to attack an argument or critique an argument, when you're doing this in a way that I think is logically valid, then what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to attack one of the premises. And this is one of the things. So like when we were going over, Nick, you remember when you were me, you, and Carson, we were meeting and you're prepping to do your presentation on the individuation of souls, right? What did you have? 7 or 8 premises? It was 6 or 7. I don't know. I think it was either 6 or 7.
In one of my arguments, I had 7 premises.
Yes, and so I remember. So one of the things. So I was throwing out disagreements and things like that, right? And Nick's response, he was like, "Well, and what he said was true. I'm gonna have to look at his argument because he put it together as a syllogism, and he said, you're gonna like, which premise do you disagree with? And I'm gonna have to find out which one of these I disagree with. And so it's not as simple as just saying I disagree or I don't like it. It's where did you? So my argument took logical steps to get here. It built on other premises. And so, and Nick, and in a second, I'm going to have him put some proofs up here just to show what this looks like, because the premises, they lead to this conclusion, right? And so your proof of that is the premises and stuff like that. It might be premise 1 and 4, whatever it is. But there's a way to show and demonstrate that it came from and it was built properly to the conclusion that we have. And so Carson and I, so now we're looking over this thing and we have to point out, okay, which premise am I going to challenge? And that's the way to do so. So, and even if you're writing out an argument, right? Even if you're writing out an argument, it could be Judith Jarvis Thompson's argument with the violinist that you're strapped to, whatever it is, the pro-abortion argument, whatever it is. You have to figure out, okay, where's the error in their thinking? How did they reason, find that premise, and then challenge it? And then you have a shot at saying, okay, so the conclusion doesn't follow. But go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, so here's a visual way of demonstrating the truth of the syllogism earlier. So we look at premise 1. Premise 1 states that all humans are animals, which means that the circle, the circle for human, this one right here, and the circle for animal, all of their members are in common, which means that we could actually circle in this bit right here. Some people shade out all the parts where you don't have members in common, but I find that confusing. So
this is where Carson got on my nerves because the textbook and everything that we had, it kept shading out the other ones, and I'm going, no. So it was throwing my brain off because it's shading out the other ones, and it was like putting an X in a certain place. I'm like, okay, now it's throwing me off. But so you shade the area where there's the overlap. This I understand.
Yeah. And actually, to make it even clearer, I'll even do it more incrementally. That doesn't want to. Well, I'll just have to erase it manually and just redraw the circles.
That you toted to all of your classes. The rest of us are toting primitive notebooks, and you're carrying this thing around, logging all your notes and everything in.
Well, yeah, because this way I can carry one thing instead of 80 things.
Yeah, and that's because this brother he's a logical man, and so that's why he thinks like this, and he wasn't carrying around 15 spiral bound notebooks like I was. But go ahead.
So if humans and animals have all their members in common, and this is one reason why you usually shade out everything except what you want to focus on, is to show that we're excluding all of this. All of this doesn't count. There are no humans that are not animals. So we're just going to so we're just going to do this, and actually we don't even have to do that because we can just say all humans are animals. Just focusing on this bit right here, and then you could say that all animals are also mute creatures. So that actually eliminates all of this. And actually, and here you can see there's only one place for humans that is left for humans to go, and and it's actually right here. So it overlaps with those creatures that are mute. And actually, I put the X in the wrong spot because I'm trying to talk and draw at the same time. But yeah, it goes in there, right in there. So according to this syllogism, all humans are mute; they can't speak. And so what you can do then, because now we realize, oh wait a second, hang on, we have reached a false conclusion. That means that one of our premises is false. And the reason why we know that one of our premises is false is because the argument is valid. And because this is a well-formed categorical syllogism, the logical structure is correct. And so if it produces a false conclusion, that means necessarily one or both of the premises is false. So what we can do then, for a proof, this is called a proof by contradiction. So we'll just negate 3. So so we'll say some humans
Nick,
are not mute.
Okay, so now we're getting into a different. I like it. Go ahead. So continue on.
All right. However, okay, so some animals are not mute. So we have so from this, we're re-examining. Some humans are not mute. So from that, you have options. You could say, okay, that either means some humans are not animals, or that some animals are not mute. And in fact, and so in logic, this A, it's called a middle term because it's in the middle of these two right here. And in logic, the middle term of a categorical syllogism has to be evenly distributed.
Yes.
So like it has to go here.
Term appear?
It has to go right here in the first premise. It goes so it's the second term, and in the second premise, it's the first term. Otherwise, you do commit a logical fallacy called undistributed middle.
Yes, the fallacy of undistributed middle, and that one is a formal fallacy, correct?
Yes, that would be an error. That would be an error in the logical form.
Hey.
And because we want it to be evenly distributed, so we conclude some animals are not mute. So some animals, or another way to word this. Actually, no, because we didn't. You could say some animals can speak. So you could say something like. Some ARVV, they can vocalize or they can use their voice. They can speak. And from that, you can say all humans are animals, and some animals are vocal. So you can infer that some humans can speak, and in fact, some humans can speak.
Yes, and but since we're going with the some instead of the all, sort of thing, right? And what we're looking at there. Will the conclusion necessarily follow that the particular category or the particular group that we're talking about of animals, will it necessarily follow that that particular group, whatever group that we're talking about, that group is a speaking group?
No, because all you need for the qualifier some to be true is if one animal speaks.
Yes. So then is that an inductive argument there?
Yes, there you're going into inductive reasoning, which is the companion to deductive reasoning, but it has different rules.
Yes. Now, Nick. So I want to talk to you about sort of practically about, because we talked a little bit about the practicality of deductive reasoning, right? And so with inductive reasoning, can we talk about strong or weak arguments and what that looks like in inductive logic?
Sure. And do I want to use a Bayesian probability space or not?
Not just yet, but I tell you what. So we've talked about the sort of things, right, with reference to, like for example, like I've used it with reference to the resurrection in a manner not unlike what William and Craig did, with the resurrection, right? So with the probability, with certain background historical facts and that sort of thing, and the most likely conclusion, But so, okay, so we're going. Okay. Oh, as a matter of fact, before we get there, say a little bit, and not, if you well versed in this area, with Hume's problem of induction, and with the sort of things like the sun rising tomorrow, especially with something on a more, I don't know, naturalistic atheistic sort of framework, with something like the sun rising tomorrow, and that sort of regularity that we posit. But I'm sure you'll probably actually get into this in your presentation with the sun rising tomorrow. But it's one of my favorite examples. Well, first, what's inductive reasoning?
So that's where you take specific data points or specific information, and you make an inference to a general trend, and it's based on probability. So the reason why I have this here, what's the probability that the sun rises every morning?
Now, hang on, but when you say probability, that's different. That's a little different than, and this is for the slow people like DMG over here. That's a little bit different than the sort of deductive reasoning we were talking about, where that necessarily follows, right? Probability, probability is that one's a tad different, correct?
Yes, because now we're talking about likelihood. We're not talking about certainty, because inductive arguments cannot provide certainty. In fact, it's a really interesting thing about probability. Probability of 0 is not the same thing as impossible. It's like, for example,
If I can, I just wanted to let Leandre know that I keep reminding you that I heard Fresno is very nice this time of year. So
I'll be somewhere else whenever you decide to visit. So that's fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a really big dude over there at Hay. I'll be.
Go ahead.
He just wants to give you a hug.
Yeah. I imagine it's gonna be a bear hug, like the world's strongest man. Remember WWF? What was his name? Patrick Henry. Anyway, so that's a big husky fella there. I don't want any problems. But if you got like a small nephew, underdeveloped nephew or something like that, you send him my way, and we'll get to the bottom of it.
Sure.
But go ahead.
Sorry for the interruption, Nick.
I love interruptions. Keeps things fun. What are you apologizing to me for? I'm the guest. Like,
exactly.
Okay, so the sun rising, induction, and that sort of thing, right? So with something deductive. Now watch this though, Nick. If something is not deductively valid, does that mean that it's not a reasonable conclusion to draw?
That question doesn't even make any sense, because only deductive arguments can be valid or invalid. Inductive arguments they don't have something called structural validity, because an inductive argument it's not that kind of argument. So for deductive reasoning, we say an argument is valid or invalid depending on whether its logical structure is correct.
And if it's invalid, then it becomes what?
It's not sound.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it means that the argument is not sound, and an argument that is not sound cannot be. If you try to publish it, the scholars are going to laugh you out of the room. Unless they're nice, in which case they'll just gently remind you this is invalid. But with an inductive argument, it's you either have a strong argument or a weak argument. And the strength or the weakness it just depends on the likelihood of the argument being true. So, like, for the sun rises any morning, suppose I lived in a cave for my entire life. I've never seen the sun. And then someone or something, somehow I managed to make my way out of the cave, and I see this giant ball of light that's just like slowly traveling across the sky. And I'm thinking, oh, well, that's really something. I wonder how likely it is that I'm going to see this giant glowing orb in the sky again. And I say, that was a very unique phenomenon. I've never seen that before. So I'm going to say we have like a 5% chance on day one. So on day one, I might say we have a 5% chance that the sun is going to rise every morning. And then day two, oh, wait a second. This giant ball in the sky, it's back. So that's going to increase my confidence that the sun is going to rise every morning. And I might say, okay, well, it happened twice. So I'll say, okay, well, now I'm twice as confident. So we'll go up to 10%. And then the next day, wait a second, the sun rose again. So on day three, now I'm up to 20%. Day four, I'm up to 40%. Day five, I'm at 80%. And then by day six, I feel pretty confident saying the sun's going to rise every morning. So like day six, that's going to be 100%. Now, this is important. In inductive logic, the conclusion is not, therefore, the sun necessarily rises every morning. because that would not be correct. What you say instead, and it's a subtle distinction, but it is important. You don't say that the sun necessarily rises every morning, but you can say the sun will rise every morning, which is slightly different. The sun will rise every morning, but it doesn't have to. For example, it could just go supernova or collapse into a black hole, or something else, or the Earth could just be dislodged from its orbit and just go careening away from the sun, so we don't have any sunrises. So the sun will rise every morning as long as our experiment has the same trend, but that doesn't mean that the sun is the sort of thing that it has to rise every single morning by necessity. All we can say is that we have 100% confidence that the sun will rise every morning, and we plan our societies around this. Like, our calendars are based off of the rotation of the Earth as it travels around the sun, and all that sort of thing. So we use this inductive reasoning all the time. Like, for example, I know inductively that Leandre exists because I've seen him not once, not twice, not thrice, but a multitude of times. So I'm pretty confident that Leandre really exists. He's not just a figment of my imagination. There's a non-zero chance that Leandre is a figment of my imagination, but the fact that I'm having a dialogue with him on a podcast and you're also referring to him significantly lowers that likelihood. So that's how inductive reasoning works.
So Nick, and so just out of so with Hume's problem of induction in mind,
Hume is an idiot. That's how I would respond to him.
So with Hume's problem of induction, that sort of presents an issue, especially if what we can understand is that the likelihood, the fact that the sun rose in the past, does that give us any concrete way of knowing whatsoever that the past is some indication of what the future is going to be like?
Well, that kind of depends on your metaphysics, which is a discussion for another time.
Absolutely, it depends on your metaphysics.
So, but what I would say here is that because we've established a pattern, then we can say if the pattern holds, we can make predictions. And this is why we have a weather channel.
Yeah,
because we know things about like humidity and barometric pressure. We know about cold fronts, warm fronts. We know about the rotation of the Earth and how that affects the cycles of the wind and all that kind of stuff. We know things about temperature and meteorologists, people who study the weather for a living, they take all this data, this ocean of data, and they use that data to make predictions about the future. Now, the weatherman is usually wrong. Okay, so why do we hire him? Why do we keep tuning in every Sunday morning to see what the 7-day forecast is going to be? Well, it's because we don't need him to be exactly right on everything. We just need to know what we can reasonably expect. It's a way of setting our expectations. Because I got to get dressed for the day, man. Do I need to bundle up, or can I just go in a t-shirt and shorts? And being in the Central Valley, you're usually wearing a t-shirt and shorts. But if the weatherman says, "Hey, it's actually very likely it's going to be hailing today. It's going to be snowing," people will probably bundle up more. They'll probably wear warmer clothes. And if the weatherman gets it wrong, well, okay, carry on. They're going to be warm today. That's about it. But that doesn't discount inductive reasoning. Otherwise, you have to toss out all of science, because science is an inductive philosophy.
Now, watch this. Now, and I like you said that. And that was one of the things too that was awesome. Taking classes with Dr. Curry, was that he was really big on this. So that brings, and we're going to go into philosophy here just a second, and we're going to see how this sort of logic plays out. When we're doing inductive reasoning, and the conclusion is not necessitated by by having two absolute true premises that precede it, this sort of gets into where, and this is one of the discussions I got into on this channel and on the other channel, and this is a bit of philosophy, but what it means to know. So when we talk about this sort of reasoning that that the sun continues to rise, right? And just because we're dealing with something that's inductive, that we're not dealing with an impossibility that the sun won't rise tomorrow, for example. Can I still say, in many senses, that I know that the sun will rise tomorrow? So does knowledge? So here's my philosophical question: does it require that it's 100% in order for me to confidently state that I know? What do you think?
I mean, I don't think so, but that's still debated amongst epistemologists. And epistemology is the study of knowledge. It's a way of it's the conversation surrounding what knowledge is, which goes all the way back to Plato and even before Plato. So this is a conversation that philosophers have been having for literally thousands of years, and we're still not really sure what exactly knowledge is. There are several different theories being tossed around, and with the postmodern philosophers, they say that knowledge doesn't even exist. But I would say, just for my opinion, I would say that certainty is not necessary for knowledge.
Right. So, in one of the a couple of philosophers' things that I've read on the topic, and I really like his views. Presented a paper actually on this in one of Carson's classes, but it was on the subject, and it was in response to the skeptics. Whereas skepticism was basically if they could find just 0.0001% chance, they would say, well, you don't really know, there's an opportunity, there's a chance, and so you can't say and then they say we need to sort of just withdraw and and just be at peace, so so we're not stressed out trying to know. But and one of the philosophers, he basically he gave several examples. And if you lived on a mountaintop, there was this sort of canal ravine sort of thing going up the mountain, and it rained on top of the mountain, and at the bottom was a basin. If it rained for 40 days, could you say that that there was water at the bottom? And he would say yes, and he would say that there was different kinds of knowledge, different degrees of knowledge, because of course there is the possibility that some giant whirlwind came while you were sleeping, you didn't know about it, and blew all the water out after 40 days of rain. But you could confidently say that So anyway, so that's pretty much the position I hold. But it's one of the things that comes up a lot back here and on this channel, where people would take an inductively reasoned argument and then say, well, you don't know, because what they sort of posit is that you need 100% certainty in order to say that you know anything. So anyway, I was interested in your opinion. That was sort of philosophy rather than straightforward logic. But thank you for answering that.
Yes, skeptics overstate how skeptical they are. There are certain things that every single skeptic takes as absolute certainty on almost no evidence whatsoever.
Well, right. Well, and see, and one of the things too. Well, this is one of the presentations that I gave really on the skeptics is if you calculate the probability that we're wrong about everything, that's a very minute chance that we're wrong about everything. So
yeah, but also what you could ask the skeptics is how do you know that I don't know?
Yeah.
Because apply your same standards of skepticism. You can't access my inner thoughts. You don't know what's going on in here. In fact, if you're an honest skeptic, you can't even be certain that I even have a mind to begin with. So who the heck are you talking to?
Wow.
So you're going Cartesian.
Well, it's not just Cartesian. Because I really like the writings of Dr. Alvin Plantinga.
I said that just because I knew you seem to have an issue with Descartes. So I just
he's one of my favorite philosophers.
Yeah. But you seem to have an issue with him.
He's French. Of course, I have an issue with him. He's French.
And also,
full disclosure, I am ethnically French, so I'm allowed to go after Descartes for that.
Yeah.
No one is better at hating the French than the French.
Well, we also need to talk about you collapsing Kant in your presentation on another occasion. But anyway, yeah, I'm actually interested in getting you back on too about your theory of mentalism.
Have either of you seen the new Napoleon movie?
No, I'm actually really looking forward to seeing it. I don't know about it. Is it out yet?
I think so. So.
Yeah, because I saw the preview of it. It was it Joaquin Phoenix? Was that him who was the yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I saw the presentation of it, and I said I wanted to watch it.
Yeah,
I definitely want to see it. When he said that, I was like, it's something to do with France that I want. Oh yeah. So, but yeah.
So Napoleon was a French revolutionary, and the revolutionaries claimed to be basically the secular disciples of Descartes, which is ironic because most of them were trying to abolish religion in France, and Descartes was a very devout Catholic. But that's a whole other can of worms.
So Nick, here's a really hot topic that comes up all the time back here. Can you touch on fallacies? What is a fallacy? And can you give us some examples?
Yes, because I actually had them written down beforehand.
Wait. As a matter of fact, Nick say he got into the funny scribbles and stuff. Nick, actually, before that, this was not planned, but this seems.
I always over prepare.
Nick, I want to do some. Nick, stop sharing real quick, and I want to share real quick. I want to do some. DMG, please permit me this leeway.
Hey, check your Leandre McBride at Yahoo.
Okay.
Oh, now everyone's gonna be emailing Leandre now.
Can you all see this? Before we move on from syllogisms, I'd like you to Nick. Let's talk about the syllogisms here real quick, and I want you to just tell me what you think here. Let's do this.
I'm not hearing anything.
Leandre, is your screen muted?
It was not muted. I don't know. So y'all couldn't hear it?
No.
No, I cannot.
Okay. I don't know what that's about. DMG. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna stop share. DMG. Here's what I'm gonna do.
Hey, this is paradigm shift. This is a paradigm shift video, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. Because I saw B said fair use. I was like, who video is this? Oh, okay.
So please go to 4 minutes 55 seconds. So Nick, so here's the quick context and background. This was a discussion on biblical slavery. The person presenting this syllogism here was basically arguing that this was a man-made book. And so I want you to listen to the syllogism here, and I want you just to, as nice as you are, just tell me the strength or weakness of the argument there. So 4 minutes 55 seconds.
If it's a syllogism, it wouldn't be strong or weak. It'd be valid or invalid.
Yeah. So
you clearly did not pay attention to anything I taught you in our tutoring sessions.
Yeah, strength or weakness of the argument, Nick. DMG, play it. 4:55.
Hey man, did you just yell at me?
You're bald. Come on, man. Listen.
I feel abused. I feel minimized. Leandre, I feel like I'm being discriminated against because I don't have hair and you do.
It is not illegal to discriminate on the basis of hair or lack thereof.
But I think it should be, and I think that the case that I intend to build against you should be the template or the reference point from now on for that new discriminatory law going forward.
Gotcha.
So it's not letting me go right to, you said 4:55.
Yeah. Just right around the 5 minute mark, wherever you.
All right. So let's see. And I need to share. I feel like you're about to do something mean.
No, I'm not doing anything mean. We're just evaluating arguments.
Oh, by the way, Leandre, Christian's in the chat.
Is he?
He is.
Christian. Listen, we got to have Christian on here. To talk about things like the Library of Alexandria, which he gave his presentation on.
To talk about the Roman Empire.
Yeah. We got to get him on. Are you muted too?
You're talking about God gave these laws. No, God gave it. You know why?
DMG, what's with the connection?
I think I've seen.
You know why? Because man wrote the book. Man wrote the book because man sees himself as God. Therefore, man sees himself as God. Therefore, man is God. The man that wrote the book is God.
All right, pause.
You can't get past the biblical slavery or the biblical slave narrative that's in this book. And I'm not even trying to say, hey, because of the Bible, slavery exists. No, this was a tool that they used.
That's it, DMG.
To help convince slaves or to help keep them in bondage.
DMG, did you fall asleep? Okay, there you go. DMG, why are you frozen? Nick, I see you shuffling through those. Are you shuffling through those cards?
Yeah, I'm looking to see which fallacies apply here. I think that one was in there. Let's see here. I think we just got those two.
Hey, Leandre, did you accept?
I am headed. I'm logging in right now to accept.
So what are we waiting on?
And then once you do, go out and come back in.
Okay, I'm going to leave this and jump into the other one. Hang on.
Yeah, I'm making sure he has admin capabilities.
Oh, I see.
That way, if I need to.
All right, I'm back like it ain't happened.
Right.
Yeah. So, Nick, evaluate.
Well, I don't really understand what he's trying to say. Is he trying to say that the Bible was not divinely inspired?
Yeah.
Well, he failed to make that case. I think he was trying to say that because human beings wrote the Bible, that means that human beings believe themselves to be God.
That seems to be the conclusion. It's the only way that like I saw it, but you know, as opposed to what I was trying to get to.
So his basic argument. Actually, I'll wait until our host comes back. Unless he's never coming back.
Oh no, yeah, you continue. He gave me host powers just in case this happens, because sometimes happens. But yeah, but go ahead on now.
So so he committed the fallacy of ambiguity, because the word right has many different meanings. So you actually can say human beings wrote the Bible and the Holy Spirit wrote the Bible, but the word right does not mean the same thing at the same time in both sentences, because God did not physically pick up a pen and write on parchment. That is not how the Bible is composed. God did not use physical materials himself to write the Bible. Rather, what many Christians believe is that the Holy Spirit inspired the authors of the Bible to write what they wrote. And because they were inspired by a divine source, we give credit to God as like the ultimate author of scriptures. But God is not the author in the same way that Matthew or John or Hosea are authors, because that word author can mean different things in different contexts.
Gotcha. Okay, so cool. So we're not talking about, the sort of grapson, you're sitting down, you're taking a pinakidion, for example, and transcribing pinakidion. Shout out to Dr.
Poterion.
Ecomin Poteria. But again, shout out to Dr. Pam, professor of all sorts of things over at FPU.
Professor of everything.
Yeah. Really professor of everything: rhetoric, Greek history, Latin, and you name it. Sometimes ancient Phil, any number of things for the educational lesson. Yeah. Okay. So, what was the other subject I said we were moving to? Oh, that was fallacies. Fallacies. Could you please? What's a fallacy? Could you give us some examples?
So again, philosophers debate over the exact definition, but generally, a fallacy can be considered to be a flaw in your reasoning. You have when you commit a fallacy, you have failed to reason properly. So you need to go back and revise, basically. And there are two types of fallacies. There's formal fallacies, which have to do with the logical structure of a deductive argument. And then there are informal fallacies, which they don't have anything to do with the structure of an argument. They have more to do with the content or sometimes the context of an argument. And most people are more familiar with the informal fallacies because those are the ones that come up the most often.
Yeah. So again, so just to sort of, so informal means that, that the form could be valid, but that it's content specific, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That is specific to the content. And so, it seems to me, Nick, and you tell me, you might have some situations where, where something it would be a fallacy in one situation, but it will not be an informal fallacy in another situation because it's, specific to the content.
Yep.
So
the slippery slope is actually one of the best examples because a lot of people nowadays are saying, "Oh, the slippery slope is not a fallacy. The slippery slope is not a fallacy." Depends on what they mean, because there are deductive versions of a slippery slope argument. They're just really, really long categorical syllogisms. And they're logically valid, and the conclusion necessarily follows that the premises are true. But when a slippery slope is a fallacy is when you have failed to sufficiently demonstrate the truth value of your premises. So you say if A will happen, then B will happen, and if B will happen, then C will happen, and so on and so forth until Z happens, and Z is bad, so we can't allow A to happen because it'll just set the dominoes falling. That is a fallacy because you haven't demonstrated the causal connection between all of your terms.
Yes. So on that note, would you mind if I gave a quick example?
Oh, you are forbidden from giving examples.
So let's watch this here, and we'll see an example. I think of one of these slippery slope fallacies, right? In a case where it is a slippery slope fallacy. Can y'all hear this?
No.
Okay, hang on. Let me turn it up. Hang on. Let's try again. Can you hear it now?
Nope.
What is going on with the audio? Why am I showing in here twice? Oh, that's right, because one of them shares screen. Well, so let me just say it then instead. Those commercials, he basically says when your cable company keeps you on hold, you get angry, and when you get angry, you punch the mailman. And when you punch the mailman runs to your neighbor's home. When you run to your neighbor's home, the neighbor kidnaps you because he's a mob boss. And when the mob boss kidnaps you, you end up in a ditch or something like that. That's an example of a slippery slope fallacy because you have all of these events that are connected, but there's no actual connection that you've demonstrated between these events. Am I on the right page here, Nick?
Yeah, you're just, and they're aware of this too because the absurdity of the scenario lends to the humor. It's funny because it's nonsense. So
exactly, and it's part of the
because your neighbor could be a mob boss and he could kidnap the mailman, but what's the probability that that's actually going to happen?
Yeah. So let me give you another example.
YouTube post could come to Fresno.
Okay. Yeah. So let's hope he doesn't. Unless he wants to go to jail. So because I call the police.
Okay, I just gotta say I am too white for this conversation. So.
So let's take another one. Like with circular reasoning. Is it okay to prove logic by appealing to logic?
Say again?
Is it okay to prove logic by appealing to logic?
It depends on what you mean by that.
Well, if I wanted to tell you that, that what some, what some logical rule is, and then I show you, that what the rules of logic are, is that circular reasoning, and is it a fallacious circular reasoning?
Not necessarily. It depends on how you construct the argument. Like for example, I could say something like all logic is the product of human innovation. Human innovation is generally unreliable. Therefore, logic is generally unreliable. Well, then my argument is not reliable.
You're right.
Because I just use logic to undermine logic. So that's not an example of circular reasoning. That's an example of a reductio ad absurdum. The argument undercuts itself. It reveals itself to be a self-contradiction.
Gotcha. Okay. So yes. So now, maybe you can, because I think we've touched on at least 3 informal fallacies so far. But yeah, could you speak on some informal fallacies?
Some more informal fallacies?
Yeah.
So one that is very common is begging the question. That's when you assume the very thing that you're trying to prove.
Are you still beating your wife?
That's a loaded question. That's not begging the question.
Yeah, but are you still beating your wife?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
No, that would be an example of a loaded question. Begging the question is something like Leandre is flawless and perfect, and I know this because Leandre says so in his great and infallible book of his truest things that should never be questioned.
Sounds like Leandre.
Or I could say I know that I'm attractive because I'm not ugly. That's begging the question.
Yeah, but only stupid people would disagree with me, Nick. What's that one?
That would technically be an ad hominem. If you disagree with me, then there's something wrong with you. That could also be a version. That could also be a form. There's another less well-known fallacy called the Kafka trap, named after Franz Kafka. It's where the denial of guilt is considered proof of guilt. Like, for example, calling someone a racist because not because you actually think that they're racist, but because you're just trying to get them canceled or something. And they say, "Well, no, I'm not a racist," and then you say, "Aha, I got you," because only a racist would say that they're not racist.
Yeah, but you only believe this because you're an American.
Or like the only reason why you have this attitude is because you're white, or because you're black, or because you're straight, or because you're a Christian. Like any number of things. Those are all ad hominems, and they're also genetic fallacies. Genetic fallacy is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
A genetic fallacy is an example, like when you discredit an argument or a claim because of where it came from or how it originated. Like for example, suppose that you have this belief that that your neighbor is actually a CIA agent and he's spying on you, and you believe this because you're a schizophrenic, like you just have paranoid delusions. So we might say, well, he's probably wrong. His neighbor's probably not a CIA agent. However, we can't say therefore he's necessarily wrong, because his neighbor, he could be right on accident. So that'd be an example of a genetic fallacy. Because he formed this belief through irrational means, he has to be wrong, guaranteed, no exceptions.
So Nick, so let's try this at home. What if I say I don't believe that author or that scholar because he's a Christian? What's that one?
That would be an ad hominem and a genetic fallacy. You are refusing to take seriously a claim because the person who made the claim has some characteristic that you don't like. So what you should do is actually look at the argument and just test it on its own merits. It's like, it's like when in the Jim Crow era, when people refused to hear the testimony of a black man because it was black.
Yeah.
Like it was wrong that it was irrational then, it's irrational now. It's the same reasoning.
What would a statement like, and don't, if you're in the chat, don't get upset about my Joe Biden bias, but if you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
See, that's a few things. Because first off, because there sometimes a claim that a person makes can be multiple fallacies all at once. So that's another ad hom. It's also technically an appeal to force because there's actually an implied threat, because if you don't vote for me, these consequences will follow. So the Romans called that the appeal to the stick. Agree with me or I'll beat you. And it's also a non sequitur. Non sequitur is Latin for it does not follow. It's just nonsense. Are there any others that it falls under? It's also a no true Scotsman, because he's implying that no true Black American would ever vote Republican. So he's appealing to, ironically, he's actually appealing to racial purity, which, I thought Hitler was the one who did that, not our president.
I thought Donald Trump supposedly did those type of things, but all I heard him say was, what do you have to lose? But don't get upset, people. I'm just saying that was kind of crazy. But go ahead. I wanted to ask that for a while.
Yeah, he should not have said that. Black people can vote for whoever they want.
And still be black. So without losing the black card, without the threat of
because I can explain why he thought that was a good thing to say, but that would be an entirely separate philosophical discussion.
Yeah. Oh, I get it. I get it. It just, it was kind of, but I remember hearing that and I was like, wait a minute, did he say? Oh, he did say it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What's going on, Brother Rocky? Sorry, I was talking to my man in the chat.
No, engagement with the chat is good practice.
Leandre, did you catch that?
If a man's trying to build his platform, he's got to foster community engagement. Otherwise, no one's going to tune in.
I don't listen to white boys.
It's okay. I don't either.
Yeah, good. That's good. I just if it comes to white people, listen.
Are you not entertained?
Hey Nick. So watch this one. What's a guilt by association fallacy?
Guilt by association?
Yeah.
So that would be like, for example, Tucker Carlson, very controversial news anchor, formerly worked with Fox News. Now he's on Twitter, or X, or whatever Elon Musk is calling it this week. He had a sit down and he interviewed Gavin McInnes. This is several years ago. Gavin McInnes is the founder of the Proud Boys, which didn't start out this way, but has become basically a hate group. They sort of like a white nationalist sort of group, which is why Gavin McInnes bailed once the group got too extreme for him. And Gavin McInnes, he does have some pretty spicy takes. Like he says that people should thank America and Great Britain for ending slavery, which is regardless of how you feel about the historicity of like the slave trade, it's a spicy take, whether you think it's right or wrong. So the guilt by association fallacy would say, okay, well, Proud Boys was founded by Gavin McInnes, and Proud Boys is a white nationalist hate group. So, and Tucker Carlson is sitting down and having just a bro talk basically with Gavin McInnes. So Tucker Carlson must be a white nationalist.
So Nick, so how does this question sort of come into play of when someone is saying you had some, well, let's say that the argument is you had some slave owners who had claimed or said to be Christian or otherwise. Therefore, Christianity is white supremacist or white nationalist because of that. What would you say to that?
I would say that the Syrian Christians currently living in Syria are whiter than most Europeans. So are you trying to? And also of the using that same line of reasoning, I can say that all atheists are mass murderers because Joseph Stalin, an atheist, murdered hundreds of millions of people by starting a famine. Or not like the Holodomor in Ukraine. That was a famine that killed millions of Ukrainians, and that's due to Soviet policies. But that doesn't mean that atheism causes famine, right? Like the fact that Joseph Stalin happened to believe that there are zero gods in existence doesn't necessarily lead to the deaths of millions of people by starvation.
Well, unless I don't know, unless Dostoevsky is right.
And then, especially when you juxtapose it to, it was also a group of other Christians that were fighting against the institution of slave. So, yeah. But proceed.
So on that note, go ahead.
Well, you also have to, if you want to do guilt by association, then not even Black Americans are off the hook because who was selling the slaves to the Europeans in the first place?
Yeah. So on that note, Nick, especially with reference to Christianity, let's talk about hasty generalizations.
So a hasty generalization is when you make a general statement. Well, just too hastily. So you go for a walk. You walk by this pond, and you see that all of the swans in this lake or this pond are white. And so you say, so all swans are white. Well, that's a very small sample size. There's like what 5-6 swans in this pond, and you're saying that every swan in existence is white just because you've seen several white swans?
Yes. Now, Nick. So now there's see. This is what I mean. Can you see the question on the screen?
Little Lucifer says, "What fallacy is Jesus died for my sins?" That's not a fallacy. That's a claim. And that claim is either true or false. And you can determine the truth or the falsehood of that statement by considering any relevant historical evidence, any eyewitness accounts, what would have to be true, like metaphysically, for the statement "Jesus died for my sins" to be true. But the claims are not fallacies in isolation. A fallacy has to do with reason, not with a particular belief that a person has.
Yeah. So, Nick, are you familiar with the false charge of fallacy?
The fallacy? Yeah, I actually have one of my flashcards. In fact.
Yeah. What's that? So let's talk about that for a second.
So the fallacy, that's when you presume that because someone has made a claim or an argument and they argued it terribly, they have to be wrong, like necessarily wrong. Like, for example, all cows have 4 legs. My cat has 4 legs. Therefore, my cat is a cow. That is the fallacy of the undistributed middle. So that is a formal fallacy. However, what if instead of saying cat, I said snowball? So I say all cows have 4 legs. Snowball has 4 legs. Therefore, snowball is a cow. So the argument is still invalid. The conclusion doesn't necessarily follow, but it could just happen to be the case that snowball is, in fact, a cow. So even though the argument is invalid, the conclusion is still true. Even though, so what you would say is, okay, you got lucky, and even though the claim is false, the argument is invalid, the conclusion does not necessarily follow, but it can still follow. It just doesn't follow necessarily. So you can have an invalid argument that still has a true conclusion just by sheer luck.
Yeah. So what's a straw man?
So a straw man fallacy is when you misrepresent a person's argument, and this misrepresentation of their argument is easier to defeat than their actual position. So it's called setting up a straw man because would you rather fight an actual person made out of like muscle and bones, or would you rather fight a dude that's just made out of hay? The dude made of hay is way easier to knock down. You just push him, or just wait for a breeze, and he just floats away.
Yeah. And so maybe talk about some of the the sort of classifications of fallacies a little bit, like fallacy of irrelevance, fallacies of ambiguity, that sort of thing.
So the
fallacy ambiguity already.
No.
We did briefly cover it.
No, I mean fallacies of ambiguity, things that deal with like
examples or
yeah.
Oh yeah, so like equivocation is a fallacy of ambiguity.
Right.
The appeal to ambiguity is also a fallacy of ambiguity.
Right.
What's a good example? There's also fallacies of ambiguity. I usually don't think of the fallacies in terms of like how they're categorized. I usually just know what they are. So
okay. Well, so let's take a couple. Division and composition.
Gotcha.
There it goes. So fallacy of ambiguity, division and composition. But go ahead.
Yeah. So one of Leandre's kids, one of his sons. He takes up Likert logic. He reasons that atoms are invisible, and he then realizes, oh, wait a second, I'm made of atoms. Okay, so I must be invisible too. I'm made of atoms. Atoms are invisible. I must be invisible. And at which point, Leandre would have to savagely beat his son for committing the fallacy of composition, because just because you happen to be made of something that has a certain property does not mean that you have that property. No. And here's actually a really fun example that still trips people up. What weighs more, a pound of bricks or a pound of feathers?
right.
Now they weigh the same.
Yes. Now here's an interesting one. This one comes up, and I wish the audio would pick up when I share my screen. But here's another one. Better ingredients, better pizza.
That doesn't necessarily follow.
Right. So, for example, if I say, and this is one of the ones in Logic for Law Students that I took a while back, but here's one. Anchovies, delicious. Apples, delicious. Pizza, also delicious. Therefore, if I make a pizza with apples and anchovies, this will also be delicious. Because of the qualities of each particular part, because they have this certain quality. Will that translate to the whole, Nick? So, what do you think? Better ingredients, better pizza, necessarily?
No, that because because a lot of people love pineapple. I think grilled pineapple's fine. I can't stomach pineapple on pizza. I'm one of those people.
So sinners. Okay, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, guilty.
Lord, forgive me.
And also, like, if you say better ingredients, better pizza, can you say more ingredients, more pizza? Because, like, for example, I love pepperoni on my pizza, so I add a lot of pepperoni. But if I keep adding pepperoni, eventually it's not going to be a pepperoni pizza. It's going to be a bunch of pepperoni that has engulfed a pizza. So then you don't have a pizza anymore. You just have a mess. So.
Yeah. So that's composition, right? Can we do division next? How does the division side work? Because it seems like two sides of the same coin. Am I understanding?
Yeah, it's just the inverse. So, like, for example, I weigh about 135 pounds, and I'm made of atoms. So these atoms must weigh 135 pounds. But that's nonsense. Or what's another really good one? A university without a philosophy program. Is it still a university?
Well, according to the T-shirt that I made a while back, it's not.
Yep. Yeah, but if you're applying the fallacy of division, even if you can divide up a university into various schools, like the School of Humanities, the School of Religion, the School of Social Science, the School of like Hard Sciences, like however you want to divide it up. But that doesn't mean that the school is not the university.
Right.
It's still part of the university. It's just not the whole university. It's not every single school.
It's not the uni. So on that note, well, I tell you, how about this is a big one. an appeal to an inappropriate authority.
So yeah, so I learned it as just the appeal to authority because you're supposed to know that by appeal to authority you're talking to an inappropriate authority. So like if I use Leandre as a citation for something like feminist basket weaving, for example, and I'm writing this paper on feminist basket weaving, and I cite Leandre as a source. Leandre does not hold a degree in feminist basket weaving, so why am I citing him? He has no professional experience. He is in this field. He doesn't hold a university position in this field. Why am I citing him? That's the fallacy of appeal to authority.
Yeah. So I tell you what, Nick. So I'm going to give you another example.
Let me make sure I got this, because, and Leandre, you know why I'm asking this.
Mm-hmm.
So if the appeal to authority is using someone who's not an authority, then when people actually cite an authority and they're accused of appealing to authority, that man.
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? So Nick, I'm going to give you another example. It's one of my first times coming on, let's say, a certain channel. I was in the chat. I won't say what channel it is, but I was in the chat and I was listening to several persons argue that the Bible was once called, Holy Bible used to be called Helios Biblos, or Sun Book. And I asked,
you can say what channel it was.
Okay, it was this channel. There was a group of people.
Because I wasn't amongst the people arguing. So
yes, he was not. So I'm in the chat and I'm watching this thing, right? And I'm watching as it was presented by three persons who were up here, and then they said that the Bible used to be called Helios Biblos. I asked for manuscript evidence of this. Asked for a language source because it was stated that Holy Bible means Helios Biblos. Asked for a language source, something that directly deals with the language. And it was repeated several times that there's all of these sources. We have all these sources. One of the persons came back and said, it's in John G. Jackson's book. Go debunk John G. Jackson. You think you can debunk him?
Okay, so there's actually two fallacies there.
Right. Now watch this. Now, John G. Jackson's, do you think that John G. Jackson has even a remotely, well, let me say this. He doesn't even have an education remotely relevant to this, if one at all, anywhere near the topic and subject, but he was being appealed to repeatedly in the subject of this conversation. But go ahead, Nick.
I don't even know who that is.
Exactly.
Helios has nothing to do with holy, says Paul Gallimore. That is correct. They sound similar in English, but they have no relation to each other etymologically. Helios means sun, and holy in Greek is haios or haia. Yeah.
I tried to tell him, but go ahead. So what are the fallacies we're looking at here? Go ahead.
Well, one of them is burden of proof. He's saying, I'm making a claim, but you have to prove me wrong. That's the fallacy of shifting the burden of proof. Mm-hmm. If you make the claim, you've got to back it up. It's not our job to do your homework.
By the way, and on a future episode, I want to talk about Russell's teapot. I want to circle back to that, to the burden of proof thing. But go ahead. Continue on with the second fallacy.
And he is committing the appeal to authority fallacy because he is citing someone who is not an expert in Greek, not an expert in history, not an expert in biblical manuscripts, not an expert in textual analysis. So he has just as much credibility as anyone else who is not an expert. So he can make the claim all he wants, but he needs to give us reasons why what he's saying is true.
Now, what do we call it if in the book that was cited, let's say somebody who was watching, I won't say who, purchased the book immediately and then searched through the book using his Control F function, of course, and searched through the book and couldn't find a single instance where even the person who was not a scholar that he was citing even remotely made that claim. What do we call that?
You could call it a few things. If it's in a university setting, that's an academic integrity violation. You could actually be reprimanded by your professors if you do something like that.
So that's not scholarship. So that's not scholarship to do that. Like if I just say something so I've given or I've made some sort of reference to the citation, and saying that it's there in this source, but it's not there.
Well, first off, Baron Wash, appreciate the compliment. I love daggers. I used to have one, but I live in California now. but also you at best it's grossly irresponsible to cite a source without having read it. Worst case scenario, you're lying because you're saying I know that there is something in this book that is not in this book. And if you're caught in a lie in an academic setting, basically you're not going to get a job except as a perpetually unemployed blogger. Like your career is destroyed and you have destroyed it yourself. Like for example, this is a great example. A few months ago, a lawyer got his license to practice law removed. He was dismissed from the bar because he cited ChatGPT in a court hearing. Wow. And ChatGPT is not a reliable source. ChatGPT does not understand case law. ChatGPT does not have access to the legal documents that lawyers have.
Now, by the way, it's an awesome time. So remember, we were in existentialism and phenomenology, and we were doing that, watching a thing on what computers can't do. And so this is one of those things when we talk about AI, and in which case it's another topic I want to circle back with you with. We'll talk about that whole phenomenon. But so ChatGPT, not a reliable source. I can't just use it.
No, ChatGPT doesn't speak English. It models English. And if you ask GPT what it is, it'll tell you. I am a large language model. I simulate human speech. ChatGPT does not understand English because it doesn't have a brain. It doesn't have a mind. It doesn't have intentionality. It is a very, very large collection of ones and zeros, and it can do a lot of amazing things. Ask it to tell you a joke sometime.
Yes. So Nick, so I successfully I spent hours one day just making ChatGPT give me errors because I kept asking ChatGPT why it kept referring to itself as an I. So anyway, so I have several screenshots of things giving me errors and things like that. So I was asked, "Are you a person?" And so we went down this long route, and it kept telling me error. So anyway, it's a wonderful thing. One day, you and I should get together and do this with ChatGPT, just to see how many times we can make it have an error. This, especially Nick, when we want to talk about sort of academic integrity. And we start making reference to sources that don't remotely reflect what our proposition is. We've left the realm of logic at that point when you've sort of made something up. Not only did you make an appeal to an inappropriate authority in the first place, but likewise, what you've done is you've also made something up. Like, so even if you had cited someone and they did make that claim, but that person has no earthly idea what they're talking about in that realm, it's an inappropriate authority. But it's doubly an issue, I think, for me, when it's also a lie. And so for me, we've left the realm of even talking about logic. Now we're just talking about being an integritous person. We're just talking about just having, Anyway, so there's sort of things I've encountered on this channel. That's why I told you I dislike this man over here. This is sort of conversations I've had.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing that he's platforming the idiots, because then we can all see how stupid they are, and then we won't take them seriously in the future.
Did you hear what he said?
Nick, how dare you? Nick, no. Nick, do not try to. No. Do not try to give. No, don't do it. I'll tell you what.
Sunlight is the best disinfectant, Leandre.
I tell you.
This is why Britain isn't. This is why Great Britain isn't a fascist country. Is because the BBC platformed the head of the British Fascist Party and gave him a full interview and just asked him questions. And the British public heard this radio interview and was like, "This guy's a lunatic," and they lost all. The party doesn't exist anymore.
Yes. So
I will not allow you to minimize my contribution
I hate this guy.
to the wider community and the education thereof. Because how can you contrast bad and good and bad if you don't highlight bad?
Well, I tell you what. I reject the premise. I think we just eliminate bad in the first place. So I say that.
What Leandre is saying is Leandre does not want to have a conversation. He just wants everyone to agree with him.
No. Nick, let me tell you.
Nick, I want people to know. I want people to have no internet access.
He's being disingenuous because he doesn't want to have a genuine conversation because these people have not earned the right to have a genuine conversation with him. So what he'll do is he'll wait till they have a conversation with someone else, come in at the end of the conversation after he's taking notes, and then attempt to intellectually eviscerate said person.
Now, Nick, now here's the thing. So Nick is aware of this because he sat in on it, right? So here's what happens. Here's what happens. I sat and prepped debates with people to have on this channel on numerous topics, right?
That wasn't my fault. You are the boogeyman, not me.
Listen, I sat and prepped because everyone had debates.
Put the trench coat and the hook hand down and stop telling people to say your name 3 times. and that way we don't have to worry about people running from debates with you.
What? No. So listen. So after I sit and I do all this work, you have people presenting the sort of stuff like that I'm laying out, and I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, okay, like, are we taking this seriously? Because I'm like, listen, if you don't have enough respect to like sit down and just like do the work and put the stuff together, I'm not wasting my time either. And so I tell you what, so we can do it impromptu so here's what happens. These are people who they will have prepared their entire presentation at this point in time. Then I come on and then I just get Socratic and I just want to ask questions at that point in time. So my favorite thing to do is let's talk. Let me just ask you some questions and then let's see where we end up as a result. But this gentleman here has some of the, oh, Nick, I want you to talk to Rabbi Lewis. Yeah, you need to talk to Rabbi Lewis. Rabbi Lewis is Rabbi
Lewis is banned.
Rabbi Lewis is a Muslim Hebrew Israelite. Think on that for a second.
So, okay.
Just think on the Hebrew Israelite part alone, because I still don't understand the language and the.
So, for example,
nationality.
I was asked by the bald black man there to have a conversation with Rabbi Lewis. Rabbi Lewis gets on the imprint sense that he's written over 30 books. However, and then he sent me, he emailed me copies of these books. And they are largely, and I mean like wholesale, copy and paste works from several other works. Academic plagiarism of every sort of plagiarism that there is violated. And so I'm like, yes. And so I'm sitting there saying, I wish I would have. Like, no, like there's no way in the world. So anyway, craziness. So forgive me, but yeah, I'm choking on this bull that this guy's spewing over here.
Let me put it to you this way, Leandre. You want to be a lawyer, right? Or a judge or something?
Yeah.
You want?
Yeah, let's say judge.
So your job is going to be arguing with stupid people on a daily basis.
I knew it wasn't just the
Nick will not be back on here. Nick will not. I'm gatekeeping.
It wasn't just the same haircut. I knew I liked Nick.
Nick will not be back on the podcast. I'm gatekeeping from this point.
Hey, me and Nick are Facebook friends now. I have cut out the middle Slim Reaper.
Believe me when I tell you, I will be reporting both of your pages. You'll have to try to find another way to get to each other. I will report both of your
if Mark Zuckerberg can't get me deplatformed, neither can you.
Okay, so well, listen.
The things I've gotten away with saying on Facebook, and I still have an account, man.
Red herring, Nick. What's a red herring?
That's when you bring in something that's completely unrelated to the discussion at hand, and then you think that you've made a point. Like, for example, talking about separation of church and state in American politics. Mm-hmm. You could say, separation of church and state is not mentioned once in the United States Constitution. Okay, that's irrelevant. That's a red herring because the separation of church and state is actually implicitly constructed in the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. So the fact that the term separation of church and state doesn't appear in the Constitution is a red herring. It's a distraction. Because then you're focusing on a specific word rather than the ideas that are expressed by the words.
Gotcha.
So can I ask? Let me ask both of y'all a question, because from a writing standpoint, like a red herring is, a little bit different in that, you present one character a particular way to conceal another character, possibly being the murderer, the thief, the secret son, the secret daughter, that type of thing from a narrative standpoint. Does it work the same way in logic, or is it a little bit different?
Yeah, because red herring it's actually a hunting term.
Right.
A red herring would be placed in the path of a scent trail to distract the hound dogs, because the smell of a red herring is very strong. And actually, I can't actually remember, because I've been told that it's even a double red herring because red herrings apparently don't actually exist. Like,
right,
they're not actually red.
It's a fictional fish.
But in logic and in writing, we're both referring back to that old hunting term. It's throwing people off the scent.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So
it's a very, very good trope in writing, especially if you want to set up a good twist. In logic, it's considered lazy, sloppy, intellectually disingenuous. You don't want to do that.
Nick, question on the screen says, Nick, and then there's a colon for whatever reason. Do you consider Bart Ehrman to be a credible authority?
Yes. He's a New Testament scholar. He's not a Christian. He does not believe that the Bible is a divinely inspired book, but I don't think anyone understands the parables of Jesus more deeply and more thoroughly than Bart Ehrman does. Christians actually have a lot to learn from Bart Ehrman when it comes to the New Testament.
Right. So, Nick, I would answer that question slightly differently, and I'm going to tell you how I would answer it, but what I feel is not important. I would say an authority in something, an authority in certain areas. So he's a credible authority on certain topics. Is he a credible authority on basket weaving, for example? How would you answer that question?
I would have to see whether or not he has any expertise in basket weaving first.
Right. Yeah.
But he does hold a university position in New Testament and textual analysis. So,
right.
Like you could pay to attend his classes where he teaches from the New Testament. He's fluent in Koine Greek. He's very familiar with the ancient Mediterranean context in which the New Testament was produced.
Mm-hmm.
He is fairly confident that the New Testament that we have today is the original New Testament that was first written down.
Hey.
And that's based off of his expertise, his authority as a textual analyst. So he is an authority in his field of expertise.
Right. And to give a different example, Noam Chomsky is a famed linguist who speaks a lot on politics, however. And so Noam Chomsky's expertise in politics is non-existent, but he is a very, very wonderful linguist who's cited all the time in linguistics. Chess grandmasters, as to use Thomas Sowell's example, they make wonderful chess instructors and that sort of thing. But that would not make that person a good auto mechanic, to use a different example. And then it says, and then listen, check it. And then it says, you tell me this, Nick, you tell me if you heard one. Nice straw man, Andre. I don't know who Andre is, but maybe he's talking about me. And so I don't know.
Maybe he's talking about Andre.
Yeah. He must be, because I don't know who or what he's talking about. But
so a straw man, you have to misrepresent a person on purpose. If you misrepresent someone on accident, then you made an oopsie. You have to deliberately. Because the idea behind the analogy of this, like the metaphor of the straw man, is that you are the one putting together the straw man yourself. You are assembling it, and then you are knocking it down. if you accidentally misunderstand or misrepresent somebody, that is not a straw man fallacy. That's just you making a mistake.
Yeah.
And the reason why I draw that conclusion, or the reason why I make that distinction, I should say, is because in a debate context, you want to be charitable. You want to assume that the other person is arguing in good faith. That's another reason why professional debaters do not play name that fallacy. They don't throw fallacies. They don't name fallacies during the debate. They don't call out their opponents if they commit a fallacy. They just graciously explain where the reasoning breaks down, because it's not about them. It's not about the person you're arguing with. It's about it's about the pursuit of truth. It's about persuading the audience, and it's about addressing the claims that are made, not the person who's making the claims.
Yeah, awesome. So to circle back, I don't know where the straw man was there, little Lucifer, but yeah, I think the point is that that
what's funny is that his profile picture is, I think it's Kokopelli, which is a Haitian voodoo deity. I mean, it's small, so I can't be sure, but it looks like Kokopelli.
Nick, actually, I think this would actually be a good time to. There's a plaque with your name on it at our alma mater. So now look at it. He says Andre literally did that with a basket weave, Bart Ehrman.
That's not a straw man.
That is not a straw man. Nick, what's an argument from analogy?
So that is when you are showing how two dissimilar things are similar. Like, for example, it's often said that you cannot compare apples and oranges. They're both fruit. They both grow on trees. They both ripen in the winter, in the cold months. They're both sweet. They're both great in salad. They both have seeds on the inside, and they both have a skin. So you actually can compare apples and oranges, even though they're completely different fruits.
Yes. Now,
there's no way you would ever look at an apple and an orange and be confused as to which one is which. They're clearly distinguishable. They're like miles apart in terms of like their taxonomy, but they have a lot of things in common.
Yeah, there's a wonderful book.
Are you not entertained?
There's a wonderful book I have called Legal Traditions of the World. Legal Traditions of the World. Where actually they take up that very same exact analogy, where you can't say you can't compare apples and oranges, because in doing so you're actually making a comparison between apples and oranges, because you're saying that there's these sort of qualitative differences that you've compared and that you find it incompatible in this list of ways. But likewise, like you point out, logically, there's all of these ways, that they interact, where there's this overlap, again, both of them being fruit. And so you can compare them both in numerous ways. So you can't just say you can't compare apples and oranges. But yes, so what I was doing was I was making a point with that analogy. That was not a straw man. I was simply showing, by way of illustration, that same truth elsewhere.
Yeah, it would be a straw man if you said that Bart Ehrman claimed to be an expert in basket weaving. If you made that claim, then you would be misrepresenting Bart Ehrman, but you did not do that. You were saying, if we were to assume that certain things were the case, what would we expect to be the consequence?
Yeah, so
Is there no one else?
Nick, I try to tell him, but nobody listens to me, so I had to get a white guy to come white explain the stuff to him, because nobody listens to me.
Well, like I said, I am your token white friend. So.
Yes, indeed.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live.
This guy has
now support.
Yeah. So Nick, I've done a lot of direction here. Any other relevant topics you think are relevant to a logic that you'd like to get out?
Yes. Let me look at my notes that I over prepared for this engagement.
His mama.
That's right. Well, now my tablet just doesn't want to respond to my inputs. Well, that's depressing. Oh well. This happens whenever I try to share the screen. Sometimes it stops functioning properly, but I don't need it.
I think it's an ID10T error.
Oh, ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
You're a funny man, Leandre.
So listen. So I was on the phone. I'm on FaceTime with my dad one time, and I was trying to help him figure something out, and he couldn't do it. And I said, "I want you to go to the store. Tell me have an ID 10T error." And he's like, "All right." And I was like, "So make sure you write it down." And then so he calls me from the store, and now he's cussing and hopping mad because he just looked down at ID 10T. So anyway. Very fun. Nick, that was very quick of you. It took my dad about 4 hours to get it by the time he made it to the AT&T store. So yeah, very, very quick-witted gentleman here.
That's funny.
You ought to be ashamed.
Well, actually, let me share my screen again, and I'll give our host here a crash course in what's called propositional calculus.
Hey.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's actually not as scary as it sounds. I promise.
He's
Okay.
lying. So DMG, he says this about everything, and then he's gonna get on here and do this whole thing.
Yeah. I look. I'm prepared.
Oh, apparently I'm having some connectivity issues.
I tried to tell you the error, but you didn't want to listen. So.
Well, it's not an ID 10T error because we haven't even talked about the law of identity yet.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Actually, that's something we can't. There are 3 fundamental laws of logic, and they actually are very simple. The first law of logic is the law of identity. And it's really simple. A thing is what it is.
So what is A then?
A is A.
Okay.
Yeah, and
so
A
is not A. So A is not A.
That is correct.
Okay.
That's actually a rule of inference called double negation.
Gotcha.
Yeah, double negatives actually have a logical recognition because they're actually very useful in certain proofs.
Gotcha.
What is going on with my technology? Because I'm clearly connected to the internet. I don't know why my tablet's having a problem.
It's Skynet. They have a mind of their own. I keep telling my wife I got to put in a code to get in the house. I got to put in a code to arm the house. Now they got Tupac singing current songs, and it's just
He's supposed to be performing with Snoop and Dre and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's Skynet. It's Terminator and the Matrix. I'm convinced. I'm gonna make a PowerPoint about it.
Well, that's really too bad because I wanted to use this visual, but I guess I can.
Well, while you,
I have a workaround.
I do have a question for you all. Now, this is one of my favorite lines from one of my favorite.
That's him.
So, philosophically, logically, however you would like to, I just would love a breakdown of this particular quote.
You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Did you want me to comment on that soundbite?
So to the only one. So Nick, remember I told you I got a message just the other day. Yes, it is. If we're friends on Facebook, and I think I know who this is, inbox me. I actually do have it on video, so please send me a message or contact DMG. And let me know, and then I can send you his presentation. It's on video. Yes, the answer is yes. I found it.
Oh, excellent! Because I neglected to save it, so I'm glad that you have it at least.
Yeah, that sounds.
That project is easy. We're talking for like almost an hour, I think, on hermetic philosophy. What's funny that what was that, Leandre?
I was going to say this brother has his name on a plaque at the university. This is not a brother to toy. Listen, this brother, he's a very serious, very serious, scholarly brother here, man. I feel like this is kind of a good segue to where I was telling you I want to take the channel, and I like that y'all was talking about Boyd Ehrman because that's my target for my what I'm dubbing my reboot. But are you gonna get him on here and start mispronouncing words like like Garfield, Didach?
No. And Garfield has an accent because he is from Jamaica.
That has nothing to do with saying Didash.
I do not appreciate you making fun of my immigrant brothers.
His Jamaican accent has nothing to do with saying Didash over Didake.
I don't know. I don't know that that's not the case, Leandre, and neither do you.
I do know that that's the case because
how do you know that his accent and the way that he speaks is not the reason for the way he pronounces that word, Leandre?
You can't make
are you a mind reader, Leandre?
You're telling me in Patah they don't make a cuss sound?
I'm just asking, how do you know? How can you be?
This is inductive. It's inductive.
What leads you to believe? Like, are you a linguist?
No. What I'm telling you, it's inductive. I know plenty of Caribbean people and Jamaicans. If Miss Cleo could say, "Call me now for your free reading,"
what proof do I have that you know all of these Caribbean people and Jamaicans? Like, where?
Well, you don't have proof, but you do have evidence. The evidence is my testimony. Tell him, Nick.
Okay.
Oh, you're an unreliable witness, so your testimony is inadmissible.
Hey, Nick, I'm liking Nick more and more as this show goes.
Nick will not be back on. I'm telling everybody now. Do not expect Nick to be back on here again because he won't be.
Very interesting. What reasons do you have for drawing this conclusion, Leandre?
Because I'm going to physically intervene and make sure you don't make it back on here.
Leandre, you're like 80.
You don't know 80.
You're 80. No. But this is the thing. Even if he wanted to physically intervene, he's 80 pounds with boots on.
See this. Ignore the wide bald man who's over there. He walks sideways through doors. Ignore him.
I do.
He walks sideways through doors and carries refrigerators as pastime. Nick, are you still having issues with your thing?
If you want to talk, if you just want to talk, that's fine. And I do want to say this for much appreciation for those who watched and are watching. Nick, I definitely appreciate you coming on. Leandre, I need you to take over because I have to get up in like 3 hours.
Yes, sir.
But Nick, I appreciate you coming on. Please continue, and I look forward to having you back on. Despite
thank you very much for having me.
Despite what our mutual acquaintance over here is suggesting, you are welcomed anytime.
Not gonna happen.
Anyway, thank you, sir, and please continue.
Yeah, of course.
All right.
All right. Here's now. This is where it gets unhinged.
Yeah. This is where we go completely off the rails.
Hold it down, Andre. Hold it down.
I got you, sir.
I guess we'll have to save the crash course for propositional calculus for another time. That sound good.
Well, I tell you, just maybe can you explain just briefly what's a proof in logic? Like when we talk about proof in logic, what do we mean?
It's any method by which you demonstrate the logical validity of an argument. There are various times, like proof by contradiction, a line-by-line proof. There are truth tables, theorems. Sometimes all you need is just an axiom. It really depends.
Yeah. So I remember being in class with you, and you had wrote. It was about the Theotokos,
yes, the God bearer.
Yes, indeed. And so I remember you putting one of those up on the board. I remember several people were confused and raising an eyebrow trying to figure out what the heck it was that you were up there writing. But yeah. So those are logic groups. Hey, you know who else we have to have on here? I got to get Curry on here.
The Scholastic.
Yes, we got to get Scholastic Dr. Curry on here. That guy right there, he's a beast. Shout out to Dr. Chris Curry. Dr. Curry is a heck of a beast. That guy right there would fail. He said you're gonna get an F if you make fallacious arguments, and everybody's eyebrows were like whoa, what the heck is going on? But anyway, yeah, shout out to Dr. Chris Curry. Yeah. Well, I know your thing isn't working. Any other concepts? Anything else you want to point out? Go over.
Well, you touched on knowledge earlier, and I think I can give a sketch of what knowledge could be that doesn't require absolute certainty in order for us to say that we have knowledge.
Yes, sir.
And it comes from Alvin Plantinga. He has a series of books on epistemology, the study of knowledge. And one concept he talks about is called warrant. Warrant is basically whether or not you have any proper cause for believing that a particular cause or a particular claim is true. And his theory of knowledge kind of goes like this. I seem to have been endowed with cognitive faculties that have a particular function. And my cognitive faculties appear to have the proper function. When they're functioning properly, they produce true beliefs. Now, if we assume that I am in an environment that is hospitable to the formation of true beliefs, then certain beliefs that I form will have epistemic warrant for me. That is to say, I have good cause for thinking that I have knowledge. For an example, you and I live in Fresno, Central Valley. We live. And assuming that it's not oppressively hot and we're dying of heat stroke,
right?
We are living in an environment that is hospitable to the formation of true beliefs, because we're not currently being gaslit. We're not severely dehydrated. I'm assuming that we're not sleep deprived. We're not under the influence of potent substances like alcohol or drugs.
Mm-hmm.
So we seem to be in an environment that is hospitable to the forming of true beliefs. So if our cognitive faculties are functioning properly, then we have knowledge as to whether or not our air conditioners are working based solely on the ambient temperature of the room. We don't even have to check. We don't even have to check the AC.
Right.
Now, so inductively, you would say, oh, it doesn't follow necessarily that the air conditioner is working or not working. But we could say, no, I know that it's working because I'm not sweating in my house.
Right. Yeah. And so I like Swinburne puts it pretty much the same way, that you have a justified true belief. And so yes, I like the way that Swinburne puts that. What knowledge is. A justified true belief.
That goes all the way back to Plato.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So I think that sort of thing is important. Because when we have conversations and stuff with people, that that what we're typically all dealing with is inductive reasoning, and that there may be some strength to the particular argument where we're dealing with the probability that such a proposition is true, and I feel like a lot of people, I don't know if you've encountered this, but I know I certainly have, especially talking to folks back here, have an unjustified and false belief in what they sort of perceive to be knowledge, and that what they have in some particular area is some sort of deductive certainty about things, and I find that to be problematic, especially because they think that this is like a one-sided issue, and so to the Christian, what they say all the time is when we sort of talk about things, and there's a lot of inductive reasoning involved, they may say, well, one, you don't know that, and two, and they say, well, then I know, and then you get into a lot of things as it relates to science, where that's posited over and against which, and it's one of the things you pointed out, that's largely inductive. Is largely an inductive inquiry in the first place, and so you're going to have special pleading. And what's special pleading?
That is when you. So here's actually an example that goes all the way back to ancient Greece. It's from one of Aesop's fables. A man says, I can jump farther than any person in the city of Rhodes. And people say, oh, well, that's a pretty bold claim. Here, jump for us, and then we'll see. And he says, no, I couldn't possibly. I can't. And they say, why not? Just jump. And we want to see if you can really jump farther than everyone in Rhodes. You know, those people, they're Olympically, they're known from the Olympics for their long jumping abilities. He's like, well, I have to be in Rhodes in order to show you. And they say, oh, okay, yeah, I see what you're doing. Okay, whatever, buddy. That's special pleading, because once your claim has been exposed, you shift the goalposts. You change the rules in such a way that you kind of define yourself as no longer being in trouble, essentially.
Yeah, yes,
Like,
I like how Craig calls it the taxi cab fallacy. You know, you jump off when you no longer want to pay that fare. You know, and so that it just you've just basically said it doesn't apply to you there. But yeah, you know, and so a lot of the folks who would like to, especially to posit a sort of a difference or some sort of issue, some rub, some inconsistency, an inescapable inconsistency between science and religion. They will sort of argue that you Christians, you can't know, and that's because they sort of smuggling in that it's 100% certainty to know anything, and then they'll go with things that are inductively reasoned themselves, and then sort of think that they're free from that same sort of criticism. So, and it's one of the big ones that I run into a lot back here, because that ends up being sort of juxtaposed against Christian propositions. What is the what's the other philosopher, FPU? Also does Wilderstig. I don't know why his name is slipping my mind. Younger guy, philosopher of religion. What is his name?
Philosopher of religion?
Yeah. So when we did the whole protest, remember when we were at Carson's house? What's the other philosopher who was there?
Are you talking about Dr. Nelson?
Nelson.
Wonderful guy.
Yeah. So in which case, so yeah, him too. I told him too that a while back, I don't know, it was over a year ago now, that that should get him on here too, just talk about proving God and that sort of thing. Anyway, so yeah, that really interesting.
Proving God is easy.
Yes,
I do mean proving, because I've read Plantinga's version of the ontological argument. That thing reads like a mathematical proof. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, yes. So and again, and so these are the sorts of things, the sort of conversation stuff we have back here. But yeah, Nick, I'm definitely looking forward to to much more of these. We've been going for over 2 hours or so now. Any other topics? Anything else? What else do you have on your mind? Anything else you want to cover? I know your Pinocchio is acting up. So yeah.
Well, that's okay, because what I can do, I can share my screen on my computer and go over some basic, and I do mean basic, logical principles.
Yes, sir.
So let me share my screen again.
I think we only covered one of the rules of logic. So I think we only covered law of identity. You want to cover the other two before we?
Yes. Does it look like it's sharing my? I don't.
No, I don't even.
I might have. Well, here, let me refresh real quick.
Okay. All right, there we go. He's back like it ain't happened.
TikTok, time to rock.
All right.
So let's try this again. Man, it doesn't even want me to. It won't even let me share my screen now. What the heck? Man, all my cool stuff isn't working anymore. That's so lame. I just want to present the screen. I have cool things to show. Well, I could talk about the. I can talk about the other laws of logic.
Yeah. What's the other one?
So they're all related to the law of identity.
Mm-hmm.
The first law, just to recap, is just a thing is what it is. A equals A. A hammer is a hammer. Leandre is Leandre, and so on and so forth. That's the first law of logic. The second law of logic is the law of is the law of non-contradiction second?
Yeah, law of non-contradiction.
So it's related to the law of identity, A equals A, because A does not equal not A. So a hammer is not a non-hammer. I am not someone who is not me. Stuff like that. And then is the third one just
excluded middle?
This is just the law of excluded middle. A thing cannot be itself and its opposite simultaneously.
So, can I be and not be at the same time?
You cannot.
Why?
Because that violates the law of excluded middle. So a thing either like you either exist or you don't exist.
Yeah. So you're telling me, so we have certain categories of things that are simply, black and white. And so it can't, you know what I'm saying? So, so I can't exist and not exist because one of those necessarily entails a negation of the other. Am I understanding?
Yeah, that is correct.
Interesting.
So you
no, go ahead.
You should be able to see. You should be able to see my screen now.
Okay, there it is. Listen, you and these UK symbols that you're always wanting to bring up.
Hey, I got the US symbols here too.
Yeah, but so like you would constantly writing this UK negation through all the time. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so this is.
Oh, go ahead.
These are the symbols that are used in propositional calculus. This is pretty much all of them. If you add any more, you're not dealing with propositional calculus anymore. Propositional calculus is also called zero order logic because it's the simplest form of logic. First order logic adds existential quantifiers and stuff like that, and then second order logic allows you to quantify and quantify properties and subjects. So like it can get really complex, but these a material implication right here that just means implies. It's an if-then statement. So P implies Q or P implies that Q implies R. If you're reading a statement and it has the word because somewhere in there, like because Joe Biden is senile, he should not run for president. That's a material implication. If Joe Biden is senile, he should not run for president. And then negation, that's just a way of saying it's not the case that whatever, or it is false that.
And what if I have two of those?
That's a double negative, which we'll get into later. Conjunction just means you have two claims and they are true simultaneously. So like I am sitting and I am in my house. That's a conjunction. So the first term, I am sitting. Second term, I'm in my house. Conjunction, I am sitting and I'm in my house. There are many ways that you can see this in writing. And so here's, I want to highlight this. Logically speaking, and but are logically equivalent. So, and you'll love this one. Because, people love to pick on when a person says, now I'm not a racist, but, and then people think, oh, he's about to say something racist. Well, logically, that's equivalent to saying I am not a racist and. They mean the same thing. They are logically equivalent.
Gotcha.
So if a person says I'm not a racist, but they're actually saying the same thing as they would as if they said I'm not a racist and. So like for example, I'm not a racist, and it is the case that the prison population of America is overrepresented by African Americans.
Yeah,
like that's just a fact, and it is also the case that I'm not a racist. So I've just stated two true things. But some people, they read into it too much. It's like, oh, well, he's implying something about Black Americans or this or that thing, or the only reason why he's qualifying that he's not a racist is because he's about to say something terrible. which that's acting in bad faith, actually.
Yeah.
Because logically, the two claims are mutually compatible. There's no contradiction involved. And the fact that the prison population in America is overrepresented by African Americans, it has no bearing over whether or not I carry any racial prejudice at all.
So let's talk about this disjunction.
Yeah, so that's an or statement. So, like for example, I'm in Washington or I'm in California. That's a disjunction. Now, and very clearly, I want to be very clear about this. Disjunction is not an either or. That would be something called an exclusive or, because with a disjunction, both disjuncts can be true simultaneously. For example, I am in my house or I am in the city. Well, it's actually both, because I happen to be located in Clovis. Like I am in the middle of the city. It's the Sierra Vista Mall is like just 10 minutes from my house if you walk. So so I'm definitely in the city, and I'm also in my house. But I can say I am in my house or I'm in the city, and I have said something true because I am in my house and I am in the city. But I can also say I am on Earth or I am on Mars. Now I am on Earth. It is not the case. I am on Mars, so I am on Earth. So that's the difference between a conjunction and a disjunction. Conjunction, in order for a conjunction to be true, both statements that the conjunction makes have to be true. For a disjunction, only one of them has to be true. And then with a biconditional, that's sort of like the big brother to material implication. If you wanted to read it out, you would say equals is equivalent to, if and only if is defined as. So I have an example of De Morgan's law here. So here, it is not the case that P and Q is equivalent to not P or not Q. So the two propositions on either side of this triple bar, they are logically identical. They mean the exact same thing logically.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things is I know in the with the Power of Logic textbook that Carson used, Snyder used all the U.S. symbols except for with the biconditional, where he used instead of the triple bar, he used the double arrow.
He broke pattern.
Yes, yeah, so it was an interesting one, but yeah. So we had the double arrow for a biconditional.
I personally prefer all the UK symbols, but
that's just because you like to be different. Well, as a matter of fact, the other one too that he also used the arrow. He also used the right arrow for material implications. So yeah, there were actually two. He used the proper wedge. But anyhow, yeah.
Yep. So a nice thing about first order logic and zero order logic, this is actually a proof in and of itself. It's because this expresses a tautology, and because propositional logic is semantically complete, this has the weight of a theorem. So if you could demonstrate in an argument that something is a biconditional, you can say without any exaggeration that you have proven that your conclusion is true.
Now, Nick, that's an interesting definition of proving. So let me ask you a question. If P implies Q, if we have P, therefore, what do we have?
Therefore, Q.
Okay, now let's try this one. If P implies Q, if Q, therefore...
Well, that's not a valid argument.
Right.
You're denying the
antecedent.
You're denying the antecedent. Excuse me.
Yeah, denying the antecedent there. And so that's a logical fallacy there, right?
Yes, that's a formal fallacy, and
yes,
you've already named it.
Yeah. So yes. So like these were interesting things, and so like in one of the ones for this one here, this is the one that I read for Logic for Law students. But anyway, like this is really awesome because it basically examined and it's really cool because you get to see logic play out and there's a really practical way to use logic, I guess is my point here. A lot of the courts the courts their response to a lot of argumentation appeals and that sort of thing like that, and they look at basically the argumental structure that the lawyers and things like that are presenting. And so like one of the major ones that they point out there is denying the antecedent, or like affirming the consequent and that sort of thing. But anyway, do you see the question on the screen? So this brother here, I love this brother here too, brother Courtney Thompson. He did a presentation on here, and I was totally fangirling. The brother was up here, and he was doing textual critical arguments and stuff. So I got to interview him at that time when he came on here, and it was pretty amazing. But what do you think of the question there? Are you a Bonson fan?
I would ask what transcendental arguments he's referring to, because there's a few, and they vary in quality.
So brother Thompson, maybe you can. So in some of the Phil religion books and stuff like that, anyway, say transcendental arguments are used there. I'm afraid to answer now because Nick said it's going to depend, so I don't want to give an answer. And then the bald guy says, "Oh well." Anyway, so and then it says, I don't know if you see that one.
Have you guys considered Vern Poythress? I don't know how to pronounce that name.
I guess. As a matter of fact, so yes, I actually have that. I actually have that book, A God-Centered Approach. Yeah, I actually have that book as an ebook, and basically it's a God-Centered Approach to logic, basically positing that that as a matter of fact, I don't know, you might like it because of your theory of mentalism. That basically what you have in logic and in order thinking is basically it's a reflection of the mind of God, and so you have regularity, and that you can use induction and those sorts of principles, things like that, because it reflects the mind of God. And so that's why you can have those sorts of things and things not popping in and out of existence, simply on their own, but, in causal relationships and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I have that book. I love that book. I've actually used that book. I'll say yes. I know that I have actually, I have it as an ebook that I downloaded. I don't know, probably a couple years ago, just looking at just a couple different ways that people approach the subject of logic. So yes, for me, Nick is losing out to me in this respect because he hasn't read it. So good for me.
Yep, I'm a loser.
Yeah. So if you had to take a class with Nick, you get used to him saying, "Oh, that's a great book." It's like, dude, you say it about every book. And here's the question reformulated. I'm speaking in general. You see transcendental arguments as valid or not? It's argued by many that transcendental arguments are not sound arguments in structure or form. Just wondering. So I'll say, as someone who watched a lot of presuppositional debates, like with Bonson, I'll say that I like transcendental arguments. I think that they are valid. I know in some of the, as a matter of fact, here's one here. I do think it's valid. There's actually a book here that is pretty much on topic. I think it's valid. I'd say that there are some philosophers who likewise think it's valid. I certainly do.
I mean, all of the transcendental arguments are logically valid. The question is whether or not they are sound arguments. Like, does the conclusion necessarily follow from the premises?
Yeah.
Because if an argument is logically valid, then the conclusion only follows if all the premises are true. So then you have to examine each individual premise. Mm-hmm. And if the premises are true, then the conclusion necessarily follows. Like Immanuel Kant's original transcendental argument, I think works if you grant his presuppositions about metaphysics.
You don't get to use Kant though, because I watched you attack him.
Well, yeah, because he's wrong.
That's fine, but you don't mention Kant's name. I watched you attack him in your presentation. And yeah, so you leave Kant out of this. There was a whole slide that said collapsing Kant, and I saw it, and so.
Well, Kant had an incorrect metaphysic. What can I say?
Well, whatever. So yeah. I like the idea of people existing in worlds. Seems to make sense to me. But anyway. Yeah, but moving on. yeah. So what else you got for us, master teacher?
Well,
Daskalos.
we covered the laws of logic, and now we can go into the rules of inference.
Mhm.
So I will share my screen again, if it'll let me. I don't know why sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Okay, there we go. So these are all the rules of inference and logic. That's it. That's all of them.
Huh. Oh
Yeah.
man.
There's not that many.
So look at that, and so I want, so let's focus in on that Modus Tollens one, because I gave an improper earlier when I did the denying the antecedent, where so I said P implies Q if P, therefore Q. Then I said, so we said that one, that one's good. Then I said P implies Q. And I said not P, therefore not Q. Well, so that one is invalid. That is
correct.
That one is invalid. But Modus Tollens, that one's valid. So because P implies Q, if there's not Q, then I can say that there must not be P, because P necessitates Q is going.
Yeah, that's the post office example that I gave earlier on in our discussion. I said if today is Sunday, so that would be P. If today is Sunday, that implies that the post office is closed. The post office is not closed, therefore it is not Sunday.
Okay, so you see the screen there?
Oh, I'm getting an infinite regress in mine.
Yeah.
Let me stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, because it went all Inception.
So he's saying, as an example, an example is, I'm not. Does he mean to say A and not B, or is he just saying A not B?
Yes. I don't know, but so we know from having interned this stuff on these little websites and stuff where you have to actually check all of your logic, that that the symbols might just be the proper symbol. So so let's try this one here.
I believe that transcendental arguments are generally in the valid form, but the acid test may often invalidate the argumentation. I'm not sure what the acid test that you're referring to is.
Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, maybe Mr. Phillip, shout out to you, whoever you are. We can discuss that more deeply. See, and then there's this one here. I would have to summarize the argument as explained, I think, by Dan Collett to go further into it. Thanks for fielding my questions, not trying to write. No, Courtney, brother Courtney Thompson. You're not overriding anything. We thank you for the questions. Very, very awesome questions. Thank you. We like this stuff. Listen, you got the philosopher extraordinaire on here. Like
I said, I read this stuff for fun. All right, this is 1,500 pages of just Aristotle weaponizing his autism.
Nick, do not ever try to run for office.
Oh no! I'd be canceled in a heartbeat.
If Plato is correct, philosophers don't typically seek that sort of office stuff anyhow. So that may be a good thing.
So Philip followed up. He said the acid test is just the truthfulness of the premises. So examining whether the premises are true. Well, falsifying the premises wouldn't invalidate the argument because the argument would still be logically valid. What it would show is that the argument is unsound.
Yes, it just says that they don't follow from the conclusion, follow from the premises. But for example, Nick, if I say my brother's wearing blue jeans. So my brother's wearing blue jeans. The ocean is also blue. Therefore, the sky is blue. How would you?
Yeah, that's a non sequitur.
Yeah. Is my conclusion true though?
Your conclusion is true. The sky is in fact blue.
But what's it based on? And so in that one, we could have two true premises, but that are disconnected, like entirely disconnected. Not only just disconnected from the conclusion, but also disconnected from each other. Says to test the premise, one must at least tacitly assume the soundness of the argument to address it. Thoughts?
That is not the case. Because soundness is a property of an argument that is both logically valid and all the premises are true. So if you're testing a premise, you actually are not making any assumptions about the argument's soundness, because the soundness of the argument is what you're trying to determine. You have to assume and you don't actually have to assume that the argument is even valid to show that one of the premises is false. All you have to do is just look at the premise.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, we don't even need to know the content of what the specific thing is. And this is one of the things that you can sort of just test these things without even having any. Oh, so he says he meant validity. Like when we're talking about logic, you actually do have to be precise in your wording. Like if you're just talking with your friends, like at dinner, then you can be fast and loose with the terms. So you could say valid or sound in different ways because it's just you're just having a casual conversation. But in logic, you do have to be pretty precise, and it can be a little bit irritating for some people. Yeah. See, and so this is one of the things, and nobody got to see this stuff. Me and Nick, we were texting back and forth like crazy when he came on last time because I was, I kept pointing out these things, and I was doing it on purpose because Nick, he was unfamiliar with the audio stuff at the time. But and I'm not like. Brother Thompson is a very educated brother, so this I'm not talking about him. But so with a lot of the people who are back here talking, they actually get back here and present that. As a matter of fact, I actually had it up on my phone because one of the things that the brother was talking about was when he was discussing what Google Scholar, the brother said that somebody committed the fallacy of the categorical syllogism, and he was like, "Well, I'm not a philosopher. I'm just saying what the philosophers say," and I'm like.
No philosopher would ever say that.
Yeah, and that's what I said. No, you are not. You're not making any comment. No philosopher told you there's a fallacy.
So what I can infer, if I want to, so now I'm going to do some abductive reasoning. I'm going to make an inference to the best explanation of this phenomenon of this dude saying that he's heard philosophers call a categorical syllogism a fallacy. The best explanation that I can infer using my abductive reasoning is that he heard a homeless person babbling incoherently about how great of a philosopher he is. And in his ramblings, he said that the categorical syllogism was a fallacy. And this dude heard this homeless man, just prattling on about it. And he just took him at his word because obviously this guy is a prophet from God. And that's why society has cast him out. And then he has presented this divinely revealed authority to us.
Gotcha. So I don't know. Maybe he's an ancient philosopher who's living in a barrel or a tunnel or something.
Maybe he's Nostradamus.
Yeah. Could be. But he might be a part of the dogs.
Like, surely he must be aware that people are capable of fact checking him.
Yeah. Well, see, Nick. So this is why I like having brothers like Brother Corday Thompson on, and I like having you on, and certain things like that, because here's what happens. You have here, and this is part of the reason why I even waste my time coming back. You have people who are back here who basically delve into realms where they have no earthly idea, and I'm talking about like not even like a cursory introductory sort of knowledge and understanding of any of this stuff. But they'll speak, and they'll speak authoritatively these things. They'll also make reference to certain sources and things like that, and so it is rhetorically. There's all sorts of rhetorical reasons to do so. There's because it is persuasive. It's rhetorically persuasive. Is what I'm trying to say. Because with no knowledge, no understanding, not even a cursory, they haven't even done intro readings on anything that they talk about. No coursework or anything like that. With nothing, I'm doing nothing. They haven't read anything, and what they'll do is they'll state with authority that this is the case. They'll say, I got this from this person here. I've read it. These are what the scholars say, blah, 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 blah. And then when you say it to people who don't know what they don't know, it's very, very persuasive. And this is what I encounter back here with my community is exactly this, is you have a lot of people. Like I said, I referenced a brother earlier that his name is Kansu. Kansu says that he says he has 2 PhDs. What he does not tell people. And then he discusses issues like metaphysics and all that sort of thing like that. And he makes those claims to get the credibility, but these are 2 downloaded degrees from universallifechurch.org, 2 downloaded PhDs, and then he makes all sorts of claims. And the people who he's talking to who make all of these wild claims, and the people don't even know where to begin to fact check them. And so it's preying on their ignorance. And so there's lots of people like that back here. So so when you got somebody like me and I'm going, nope, that's not it. And you know, to a lot of people, you know, it's too late. They've been persuaded. And I think it's probably an apt place, although outside of a religious context, to say you have a wolf in sheep's clothing, where you have someone, you know, who looks like a shepherd. At that point in time, they look like a teacher, a kalodidaskalos. They look like a teacher of good things. They look like they know what to talk about in the subject. So anyway, that's you know, that's what happens a lot. I'm talking about a lot here. Is that, you know, the people at the talk don't know where to begin to even fact check the claims.
People, I swear.
Yeah. So in another example, because I know that person was in here, and Nick, you're gonna have to excuse me. I throw shots every now and then. Nick is not involved. I am involved heavily in the throwing shots portion that's going on here. But you know, and so like again, other persons who've done entire presentations here to thousands of followers, not on this channel, but on another channel with thousands of followers, talking about Christianity being a copy of the Greek religions, and specifically of the Mycenaean people. And you know, and making those sorts of claims, it was all copied from there. And the claim was made because Dedimer was the name that the person gave, was known as the bread of life, or in something to do with bread, and therefore, because Christ was the bread of life, and because we have the Lord's Supper and the Lord's table and that sort of thing, that means that was copied from that religion, showing no interaction between the two people groups, showing no borrowing, no anything like that, not, you know, and nothing but very vague similarities between some sort of title. That's
the same as saying that the doctrine of the Trinity is a copy of the Pythagorean theorem, because the number 3 is involved.
But this is what happens here. And so a lot of people are like, well, and he said this. And so then when you come along, you're like, well, actually, like, let's look into this a little bit more. But this is why I think logic is important. This is why I think critical thinking is important. This is why I think that, you know, that like knowing how to like properly conduct research and that sort of thing and ask certain questions. I think the Socratic method is so very important. You know, we can start checking and investigating these things. And I think just, you know, also just a general education is also important. You know, your ability to read and comprehend just in general, it's so necessary and so important. So anyway, sorry for the long spiel, but that's what I think happens here.
Yeah, that's one reason why I wanted to study philosophy, is because I want to help other people think well. Because it's not the case that just because you're a human being, you automatically know how to think properly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like with any other skill. You got to practice. You got to practice and practice and practice. And it's a lifelong thing. It's like when you work out. You know, you have to keep training your muscles, otherwise they're going to atrophy. They're going to get wimpy. And your critical thinking is the same. It's the same way. And logic is one of the best tools in the critical thinker's toolbox.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, man. So that's one of the challenges, you know, that I've, you know, and several others, you know, like there's one of the guy who was here earlier, Byron Washington, one of the most educated brothers, you know, that I've come across. That brother has a long list of like really long list of accolades in education, and it's like robust and wide, you know, everything from you know, economics and sort of community sustainability to, you know, to religious topics and that sort of thing, ancient theology and that kind of stuff. It's just a wide thing. I love having these sorts of brothers around, because you have people who are around who are like, actually, like, let's look into this a little bit more. And so, you know, so I'm trying to up, you know, the level of scholarship, things back here, and call people really to a higher, you know, to a higher status, and, you know, and to deeper thinking. So anyway, that's my spiel. Okay, and let's see, we got another one.
So I'm still not sure what you mean with the symbolic logic there, because that is not a well-formed syllogism. Because it's
not a woof.
Yes, that's right. It's because you have a and then a tilde and then a b. That's not a well-formed term in logic. You'd either have to put a comma there to separate them as two terms, or you'd have to add another operator. Because right now, as it's shown, it doesn't show me how A and B relate to each other, if they do relate at all. And then I don't know what you mean by non-A / -A. Are you meaning to say
Both of those would be
not
non-A.
A? Yeah. So okay, so they're both not A.
Yeah.
Therefore,
Well, I mean, because if it's non-A and then then negation.
Oh, so maybe by the tilde, he actually means like a material implication.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, can you see the whole thing?
Yeah, I can see the whole thing.
Yeah, because when I put it on the screen, it cuts off after when it's flipped. But basically, yeah, he's basically in the next one here. He says causality presupposes God. There is no God, therefore causality is unintelligible. So that's actually one of the ways that logic book that he posited earlier. That's
so. So if you're talking about causality presupposes, are they intending to saying that if causality is true, then God exists?
That's
okay. Well, then if you say if there is no causality, that's actually the fallacy of denying the antecedent. So the argument as worded is invalid.
Anyway, yeah, but this typed in a YouTube chat. But yeah, Brother Thompson, we'll have to get you on that where you can.
It's not easy putting symbolic logic into a YouTube comment.
Yeah, definitely.
That's why I tend to avoid YouTube comment sections. If I want to have a serious discussion, I usually will just invite a person out to eat.
Yeah. So, but what I'm going to do
because a YouTube comment, like, so many limitations. It's really hard to actually properly communicate like things like nuance or subtext or stuff, because it's just plain text, and then it gets lost in all the other comments.
So Nick, any final thoughts? Anything else you want to get off your chest? Would you like to? Well, I tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to, if anybody needs that individuation of souls thing, let me know. I do have it on video. Nick, I'm actually going to email you that. I'm also going to email you that ebook too that Brother Thompson referenced earlier, so you can check it out.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyhow, any other final thoughts? Anything else?
Categorical syllogism is not a fallacy.
Okay,
it is a valid rule of inference.
You sure?
I have it on my sheet here. Well, I don't have the categorical syllogism specifically. I have something similar, which is the hypothetical syllogism. It's very similar. It just deals with atomic sentences rather than categories.
So you're telling me, just so I make sure I'm understanding, that this is what I'm reading from. This is from Brother Google Scholar. It reads, his argument could be classified as the fallacy of the categorical syllogism.
There is not a scholar alive that would say that that's a fallacy.
Okay.
Like, it has, like, Aristotle discovered the categorical syllogism, and he, in my exact copy, he actually shows why it is a valid method of inference.
Okay, so because he says here, I'm not a philosopher. I just say what the philosophers say. You argue with him.
So he knows that what he is saying is not true. That's the only conclusion I can reasonably draw. Hey, I think I might have fixed my issue with my tablet, so I can quickly. I can do a brief sketch, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's new technology, so it has some bugs. So I'll pull that up before we finish.
Yeah. Go ahead and pull it up. It's all good.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen again. It should work because I'm on a roll. Oh, now it doesn't want to share my screen. So I can get my tablet to work, but I can't get the screen share to work. What is this nonsense? Okay, there we go.
There it goes.
So, this here, I don't know why the pointer's not working. Okay, so this here, this is a categorical syllogism. This right here. And
because we're talking about, when we say categorical, we mean that we're talking about categories of things. That you have something that's in one bucket and saying that things in that bucket fall into this other bucket here.
Yep. And so here I have the example, all humans are mammals. Snowball is a mammal. Snowball is a human. That's an invalid categorical syllogism. So that's the fallacy of the undistributed middle. So what you could do, and I'll just use the classic example, all S are P, all P are Z, so all S are Z.
Hey.
And that is a valid argument. That gets a check of approval because the middle term is properly distributed. The middle term it's literally in the middle because you start with an S and you end with a Z. And the middle term is distributed between both premises.
Yeah. So Mr. Philip Baines is my last logic class. The textbook was by Salmon. I hope that's not pronounced salmon. So I'm gonna say Salmon because it's it's a proper noun. It says any recommendations on books to read, been out for decades. So I would say that Schneider's The Power of Logic is a good one. I did have and point out a couple issues with it. Dr. Carson developed what he called the Leandre rule with some of the with some of the stuff there. But anyway, yeah, I think that that The Power of Logic. Nick, if you got another one that you like.
I'm trying to remember the name of the author, but the name of the book is called Logical Properties. It's a very small book, and who's the author? Colin McGinn. Colin McGinn, Logical Properties. It talks about identity, existence, predication, necessity, truth. It's a little bit. It's pretty dry. As long as it's not a long book at all. It's like I don't think it's even 100 pages long, but it's a really good discussion on those logical properties. It's controversial because he says that existence is a logical property, and Kant famously said that existence is not a predicate, which is a metaphysical property. So the fact that he says existence is a logical property is he's making a bold claim, and I think that he argues it well.
So he says so there's a book recommendation too. The Brother Thompson says Analysis of Metaphysics: An Introduction to Philosophy from P.F. Strawson. So yeah, I'm gonna have to check that one out. Thank you for the recommendation. So Nick, any final thoughts? Any closing thoughts? And any tell me why is logic important, and then give whatever final thoughts you'd like and close this out.
Because logic describes the way that God thinks, and God knows everything. If I ever come back on, I'll show you're
not allowed back on.
There's a paradox known as the omnipotence paradox, which actually shows that if all truths are knowable, then all truths are in fact known. So you can actually use logic to show that an all-knowing being exists. And if a all-knowing being exists, then he knows every rule of inference, he knows all the laws of identity, he knows every logically valid argument that could possibly be articulated, and therefore we can infer quite with a high degree of confidence that God is perfectly rational and perfectly logical. So if you want to be more like an all-knowing being, study logic.
Nick, I love it. Yeah, absolutely love it, man. Nick, this distinguished classicist major here that we're looking at, name is on plaques at the university.
I'm on one plaque.
That's fine. It's what you're on some plaques. Let's say some plaques.
Yes,
Logically.
some plaques have my name on them.
Yes, some plaques have Nick's name on. This brother right here is just an awesome brother, man. I glad to know this man. He makes you think that he's going to explain something complicated to make it simple. It's still just complicated. It's only simple to Nick. So
that just means that you're dumb.
That's probably true. That's probably very true. Man, but listen, man, thank you for coming on, bro. I love you to death, man. This is my white slave here, and if you're not now, he will be in the future.
Sorry, sir.
Yes.
Sorry, sir.
But yeah, man. Again, man, thank you. Shout out to DMG, Paradigm Shift TV 314. Thanks for having us on. The brother Nick with his good old alumni shirt. So FPU. Oh, maybe before we run, could you say a bit about? Listen, Dr. Pam. Listen, FPU. Shame on you, for the sort of things that you're doing. That's from me directly. Shame on you for the things you're doing. I stand with Dr. Pam. Dr. Pam Johnson, classicist extraordinaire. Needs to be kept around at the university there. So I'm praying that that she stays on over at FPU. Nick and I organized successfully a really awesome protest over at the university where we got them to keep the philosophy program over there. And, we donned togas, picket signs and that sort of thing, tents and things like that. Anyways, it was a whole thing. So, I appreciate my alma mater in that respect. And I just really am hoping that, they make the right decision with respect to Dr. Pam.
Absolutely. So for context, our alma mater, Fresno Pacific University, is losing money. I can't go into all the details, partially for legal reasons, but they have to downsize, which because we don't want the university to go bankrupt, so they do need to cut costs. They need to save money. That's everyone agrees on that. But they've eliminated about 60% of the programs on university that the university offered, and they're firing about 10% of their full-time faculty, including Dr. Pamela Johnston, who is supposed to have tenure. And I am not exaggerating when I say that she and her husband Marshall are the history department. No disrespect to the hardworking adjuncts that they work with, but Dr. Pam kind of carries half the university.
Yeah.
She is beloved by the students.
Absolutely.
She invests in her students more than I think any other professor on campus. Absolutely. She's a very sweet woman, and she served our country well in the armed forces. She was a spy spying on the Russians during the Cold War, which is super cool. I don't know any more details because she'd have to kill me. DMG, I'm always willing to talk philosophy with you. Dr. Pam's being let go, and it's really sad because students are actually leaving the university in protest, and the university needs student tuition in order to stay afloat. So they're scaring students away with very bad administrative decisions. So it's illogical. It is illogical.
Yes, it's absolutely logical. So, that's one of those. I think denying the antecedent, because you're not going to get the result, through that action. So anyway, but anyway, so that's that, man. But listen, Nick, shout out to you again. DMG wants you back on. We're going to talk to philosophy. DMZ considers himself a black existentialist, and so I think you'll appreciate that.
So he's like Kanye West.
Yes, he's like Kanye West. And Nick, I'll have or DMG, I'll have you know, I did an entire presentation on Kanye West and his existentialist philosophy. Nick was there. So anyway,
it was so good.
Yeah. So anyway, looking forward to having you back, brother Nick, man. Thank you so much, man, for coming on, bro.
Oh, my pleasure. It was a blast.
All right, man. Listen, man, much love to you. Peace to everybody in the chat, man. We're going to do this again, get this brother on here and brothers like him. Stop getting all these pretenders and stuff the DMG lets on here. We'll let the Craigs have those brothers. Nick, you have to learn about the Craigs. But anyway, so come back. Paradigm Shift TV 314 is where it's at, man. Love y'all. Y'all have a good night.